Good morning, everyone. We will call the October 12th, 2020 council work session to order. We are still on Zoom, so I am going to read the disclaimer that's required by the governor. To ensure public safety and comply with the governor's Safer at Home order in response to the COVID-19 virus, the Clearwater City Council will hold a public meeting on Monday, October 12th, 2020 at 9 a.m. using communications media technology. Pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69 issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present, physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technologies such as telephonic or video conferencing, as provided by Section 120.545B2 Florida Statutes. The meeting will be held through the Zoom platform and will be broadcast live on the city's website at https://government/council/meeting-streaming-videos. On Facebook at www.facebook.com/City of Clearwater, and on YouTube, www.youtube.com/myclearwater, as well as the following public access TV channels: Spectrum Channel 638, Frontier Channel 30, and WOW Channel 15. Individuals with disabilities who need reasonable accommodations to effectively participate in this meeting are asked to contact the city clerk at 727-562-4092 or rosemary.call@myclearwater.com in advance. So with that, we will recess the work session and call to order the Community Redevelopment Agency for October 12th, 2020. I would ask if there are any amendments to the minutes of the September 14th, 2020 meeting. I have a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item 3, citizens to be heard regarding items that are not on the agenda. Yes, Mr. Hamilton.
I don't know if it's a question for Ms. Aiken. I noticed that the disclaimer before this meeting has some different wording than the wording before the work session. Does that need to be read, or?
And Ms. Aiken probably needs to do her whole section.
Yes, please.
Do you want me to reread the other one?
No, sir. I'm just going to add the part about citizens who wish to comment.
Okay.
Citizens wishing to provide comments on an agenda item are encouraged to do so in advance through written comment. The city has established the following 4 options to ensure public comment for virtual meeting. 1, e-comments via Granicus e-comments is integrated with the published meeting agenda. Individuals may review the agenda item details and indicate their position on the item. You will be prompted to set up a user profile to allow you to comment, which will become part of the official record. The e-comment period is open from the time the agenda is published. Comments received during the meeting will become part of the official record if posted prior to the closing of the public comment. The city clerk will read received comments into the record. 2, emails. Individuals may submit written comments to the videos to clearwatercra@myclearwater.com. All comments received by 5 p.m. the day before the meeting, October 11th, will become part of the official record. The city clerk will read received comments into the record. 3, call-in. During the meeting, individuals will be able to call in to 562-4646 and be placed on air to speak to an individual item. 4, city council chambers. Additionally, like any other council meeting, the public may provide public comment at the main library, council chambers, 100 North Osceola Avenue. Due to COVID-19, all speakers desiring to appear in person will be subject to all applicable emergency measures in place to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. Speakers who appear in person will be subject to screening for symptoms of COVID-19. Any person exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19 will not be permitted to enter council chambers, but will be able to participate through the remote options described above. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Aiken. Ms. Call, were you giving me that same reminder, I'm assuming? Thank you.
No,
I've
no,
got council. Go ahead.
I have a comment to read under citizens to be heard.
Okay.
Comment was submitted by Kathy Flaherty. First, I would like to remind the council that this is an agency formed to address blight that causes health and safety issues to those that live and work in the CRA, along with lower property values. CRA funds are restricted funds meant to alleviate blight and to raise property values. Most of the CRA's powers come in the ability to mitigate blight on the actual property. Enhanced code enforcement are a part of those powers. The council acts as trustees with fiduciary duties. In response to Mr. Horn's statement in the September 14 minutes that he did not state that the CRA has been ignoring the Eastgate area since 1998, now called the Downtown Gateway, that is not true. Though it seems I deleted that email, I did find another from Mr. Horn dated May 3rd, 2020, which explains, early in my tenure as a city manager, 2000, the city council provided clear guidance regarding city spending and strategic priorities. The two priorities were Clearwater Beach redevelopment and revitalization of downtown Clearwater. He goes on to say that he had advised the then existing Eastgate Advisory Board that the city was focused on the two priorities done after consultation with city council members. In addition to focusing only on the downtown core area, the CRA has become a promotional advertising agency ignoring blight. The CRA's main strategy is to create stories about the downtown. It even has a full-time PR person on staff. For an email from the director of the CRA, the council does not do any code enforcement activities, but relies on investors to come in and purchase derelict property and rehab the property themselves. The strategy promotes blight. The CRA does do grants and outreach programs. In 2019, they funded $300,000 plus an interior upgrades to restaurants, funded $600,000 for the ring, an indoor workspace, funded $400,000 for improved street view at 1100 Apex, and sponsored events downtown, a total of $1.7 million in grants and outreach programs, all geared to downtown businesses. In the meantime, the rest of the CRA received no attention. Vacant, overgrown lots, apartment buildings looking uninhabitable, crack houses, prostitution, drug dealers, homelessness, single-family homes in derelict condition, and nothing gets done. There might be road work coming, but it's been years in the planning, so I don't count on that until it actually begins. Also, at the last meeting, the city attorney said the CRA funds given to the DDB was a pass-through. This would mean the DDB was entitled to those funds. They are not. It is not a pass-through. It is a payment so the DDB can spend CRA funds on promotional functions and have the CRA staff the DDB. I requested the council and the city attorney have the Florida Attorney General review the interlocal agreement, but they have refused, even though it is free and non-binding. As a property owner and business owner in the CRA, I am asking again that the council ask the Florida Attorney General to review and issue an opinion on the DDB interlocal agreement and ask what the city can do to get property owners use their properties once they purchase them. Again, this is free and non-binding. It would serve to ensure the council is spending the CRA funds lawfully and working within the laws.
Thank you, Ms. Call. Ms. Aiken, do you have any retort to that? I know that you are going to be bringing us a report in November on how to deal with vacant buildings, but that's not complete yet. So.
That's correct. All CRA expenditures are done consistent with the CRA plan. The CRA plan is extensive and detailed, and we comply with it.
Mr. Horn, do you have anything to comment?
Yes, Mayor. Good morning, Council. I just want to clarify what Ms. Flaherty has said and attributed to me when I became the manager. The city commission at that time established clear priorities. The commission did not direct me to ignore Blight in the CRA. And we have not done that. We have not ignored Blight. So I think she's mischaracterized my comments. She's taken them out of context. And she apparently, is continuing to do that. So every time I hear that, that's my response. Thank you, Mayor.
But we deal with code violations around the entire city, not just in the downtown through the CRA. Our code enforcement is everywhere. Vice Mayor, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just, I was involved with the DDB for years, and it was always kind of hard to understand how that flow of money works. But, it is a pass-through to the DDB. The reason it goes through the CRA is because we're staffed by CRA and they get paid. And so they give it back to the DDB after they take out the staff money. It was just easier and really less expensive that way. The DDB at one time was an organization that was completely separate, and now the city helps us, and so that's why it passes through. But the DDB funding is separate. CRA funding is a larger area, but I know it's difficult to understand, and I've seen the emails back and forth. I thought it was well explained, but it seems like she's not understanding that so far. So just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Ms. Thompson, you have something to add?
Sure. I just wanted to remind the CRA trustees that we do pay for community policing. So there's an additional full-time 2 officers on bicycles that work exclusively in this area. Planning and development, they run the codes enforcement operation, and we have 1 full-time codes enforcement officer that does work in this area dedicated to the downtown gateway. So and I have really tried to explain to Ms. Flaherty that even with additional staff, citations, right, the legal processes that have to be gone through to bring properties up to code, we cannot force property owners to take grant funds. Those grant funds for commercial businesses are available, but those property owners must ask for them and use them to improve their property. So the funding is there. I hear the frustration on the capital improvement projects. We want them all to happen quickly as well. So that's, I understand what she's saying, and that's frustrating, but we do have the tools in place to address blight.
Thank you. City Attorney, did you have something else, or?
I did want to add that the DDB is a separate legal entity from the city and has its own taxing authority. The money that comes to the CRA is TIF, and then the CRA contracts with the DDB to provide certain services and provides certain services for the DDB as well.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Is there anyone else from the public to speak to items not on the agenda? Seeing none, item 4.1.
Okay, approve a community redevelopment agency contribution of $305,000 to be set aside as a commitment for the minimum local government areas of opportunity funding that is required for Blue Pierce LLC, a successor in interest to Blue Sky Communities LLC, to receive a basis boost in the state of Florida's LIHTC program for an 81-unit affordable housing development project at 610 Franklin Street, approve the First Amendment to Agreement for Development and Purchase of Sale of Property between the Community Redevelopment Agency, the City of Clearwater, and Blue Pierce LLC, and authorize appropriate officials to execute the same. So this is the companion item that you approved as City Council a few weeks ago. What this development agreement entails is the CRA's portion of the loan has been reduced from $373,500 to $305,000. So if Blue Pierce is successful in receiving the tax credits in this round, then we would provide funding for that portion of a loan at 4%. The CRA would also receive $2 million for the sale of the property. There have been no changes to the development proposal. It is still 81 units, and it is still targeted to between 30% and 80% area median income for the rental. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions about this request.
Just that I think there's one error on the request. It says the FHFC's selection is expected in March of 2020. I'm assuming that should be 2021, correct?
That is correct.
And we are no longer obligated should they not get the tax credit?
That is correct. Our agreement expires, and then I'll be returning to as trustees to discuss what you would like to see on this property. And then we would start with our letter of interest process again, or whatever it may be you guys decide you'd like to do.
Questions from the CRA trustees? Councilmember Beckman.
Yeah, Ms. Thompson, can you tell me why the CRA's portion of the loan was reduced, that amount?
Sure. So the state sets the required minimum local government contribution. And because the state reduced the overall contribution, our portion has been reduced as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Anyone from the public to speak to this item? Do I have a motion?
Move approval of agenda item 4.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item 4.2.
Yes, authorize the CRA Executive Director to prepare an agreement for the development and sale of the property at 306 South Washington Avenue for the purposes identified in RFP 53-20. So this will be a three-part presentation. I'm going to go over the goals of the request for proposals that we issued. Then I'd like to introduce the developer and the architect for the project to walk you through the specifics of the proposed development. And then I'll come back to talk about our parameters for negotiation and the incentive funding that we'd like to recommend from the CRA for this project. So when I joined the agency in 2018, one of the #1 priorities was to have our properties redeveloped, the properties that the city and CRA owned. This site, we did issue a request for proposals in 2018. We only received one response, which was for less than half the allowable density and completely limited to 60% AMI. And that was not really the goal of redevelopment for that site. This is one of the largest pieces of property that the CRA owns. It is an area surrounded by market rate rental with the Nolan and now Apex 1100. So we really wanted to see mixed income up to market rate for this site. We also wanted to see a maxing out of the density on this site since it is so large and we have so few opportunities to build housing in downtown that are directly within our control. We also, of course, wanted to see something that met good urban design principles. So that was part of the RFP. Also included in this is we wanted to see some form of public parking, allowing for shared parking, not necessarily free parking, but knowing that we have retail commercial use on the bottom of the Nolan, on Apex 1100 as well up on Cleveland. We also own the property at 115 South MLK. That's a pretty small site. We don't want that to turn, half of it to turn into a surface parking lot. We'd like to provide some kind of shared parking close by so that we can preserve that existing green space in some way for community use. Again, not necessarily a public park, right? But whether it's an outdoor dining area or smaller recreation area. And we really were pushing this mixed income and market rate housing because right now we have a lack of supply for workers at Morton Plant, for those in the service industry on the beach at the management level and higher, and for our downtown tech employees, right? If you look at the occupation of the Nolan, a lot of them are No Before employees, right? And auto loop. So we still need more housing for people who do have a little bit more flexibility in their income. So with that, we published this RFP. We received 2 responses from the Housing Trust Group and from SP Clearwater. And the reason that SP Clearwater really rose to the top and why we're recommending them, a couple of reasons. One, if you look at their financial planning, they've done very detailed plans. They have actual costs. They have agreements with construction company already in place. So we know that these numbers are as real as it gets at this stage. The other group, they were relying on tax credits. And we just talked about a tax credit project. So you know that you're subject to a lottery. It's a much longer lead time in terms of securing the funding versus being able to have your answer quickly and have that money in hand. They're also providing really workforce and up to market rate housing, looking at 80% to 120% AMI. Also, I think the long-term affordability, the partnership with the Pinellas County Land Trust is really important for keeping this property affordable over the long term. So with that, if you have immediate questions now, I'll answer them. If not, we'll turn it over to the developer. They have a brief presentation to walk you through the unit type and the design. But I will say they've done extensive market research, which we're benefiting from having those updated numbers in their proposal. But the reason we're recommending them is that this meets all of our downtown redevelopment goals, and it's a very realistic plan, of course, still contingent on some county funding, which we'll get into after the proposal. Are there any immediate questions?
Any questions for Ms. Thompson?
Okay, with that, I'll introduce Peter Leach and Brian Hammond.
Thank you, trustees. My name is Peter Leach. I'm Vice President of SP Clearwater, the developer of the project. Thank you. The developer of the project. And just a couple of beginning points with this. This is going to be a 171 unit family project comprised of 57 one-bedroom units and 114 two-bedroom units. In addition to that, it's 295 parking stalls with 197 of those in a parking garage that's basically included or surrounded by the project itself. An added note is that the project is on land that's 3.58 acres and is extremely, I think that we've maximized the density and the use the best that we could. Before I begin into other aspects of the project, I wanted to introduce Brian Hammond from our architect BDG to just run through with you the basics of the project design and why it's what it is. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Brian Hammond with BDG Architects, and very excited to share with you the design that we've come up with for the project. We think it's going to be a great addition to the district, and I'm going to need a little help on kind of bringing up the graphics. I want to see the presentation. Not that one. Not that one. That one. There we go. Thank you. And to scroll through. Okay, thank you. All right, to orient you on the site, which hopefully you're familiar with, we have along the east or the west, it's bordered by Martin Luther King. On the east, it's South Washington and Gould Street on the south. This was a very challenging site for us. As you may know, there's actually a significant grade change from the southeast corner up to the northwest corner. There's upwards of a 15 to 16 foot drop from one corner to the other, which in Florida certainly provides its challenges for development. So what we did to help solve that was break this the project really into segments of terraces. We terraced the project down the site, and we located the units all on the southern 2/3 of the project. We put the parking garage here in this zone right here, and then surface parking we put on the very northern end of the site, and actually staggered the parking garage over the surface parking. That did a couple of things for us. That helped give us some more area to work with, and it also helped to shield the surface parking, because we were able to essentially wrap living units and portions of the project around that surface parking to help shield it, which we think is a huge plus for the pedestrians that are transversing the site. But if you look here, we started, as I said, terracing the project down from a high portion here. We've got a series of ramps and stairs that get you down to the next terrace down, and then it steps down a little bit further here. And then as you're going from the high point to the low point, it's essentially a series of planes. So we've got, as you can see, the units are color coded in the kind of the orange and the yellow, and the amenity portions of the project are the blue with some various service aspects to the project, such as trash and loading. But people, when they come in to park in the site, will access it through one of the two cuts that we've got here, and there's pedestrian access into the main lobby here, and then they would take the elevator up and then go through. All the units are connected by a covered breezeway that's open air on the ends, but they'll be able to access all portions of the site just by getting into this area right here. And then here on this side over here, you can see the upper floor. This is a typical upper floor layout. You can see the parking garage straddling the surface parking that is down there below, and then the different units. Now, one thing that we tried to do on this project to make it very friendly and a unique experience for the residents, we broke this into two green spaces, which you can see here on this side. This is a more passive green space, and then over on the westernmost side is where we've located the pool and kind of the more active area of the project. You can see here is our MLK, Martin Luther King elevation. As I said, it steps, all the way from back here. This is the southeast corner elevation. Keeps stepping down in a series of planes all the way down to the project. This right here is the parking garage with amenities that are lining that. Here's the office and amenity portion. That sun deck portion is right in here, and then back to the units. And then here you can see the Gould Street elevation as we're stepping down to meet the grade. And then this graphic represents the two site sections. Here's the east-west section. Again, we're stepping it down. Here's the units along Washington, and then here's that more passive courtyard that I talked about. More units here, and then the sun deck is in here, and then the northwest section, again, as it's terracing down. Here you can see the parking garage is over here on the left. And this probably describes it in much more user-friendly graphics. You can see the two views, two axonometric views of the project. Surface parking again, garage, and here's units, that we're wrapping. We're wrapping all the way around, hiding the garage on this side and most of the surface parking, and then again on this side as well. But you can see how we've articulated the building back and forth along its frontage to really help break it up and make it much more residential in scale. Some of the typical units, this is what we're looking at, very, very typical for even market rate apartment units. So we think we've given some nice layouts, and here's a couple of just kind of massing study views. And then a more photorealistic representation of the project. We've really, as I said, tried articulating the building back and forth to help break down the scale. We've used materials that are more typical of residential projects, such as brick and a lot of hardy board, but and some articulation up here in the tops. So nice residential scale windows with mullions, landscaping you know, we'll be paying particular attention to. So that's generally an overview of the project. If you have any questions for me.
Any questions for Mr. Hammond? Councilmember Beckman.
I think it looks lovely. I like that you have the green spaces, the two different types of green spaces are nice. I was wondering, you know, and I also appreciate this seems to fit into kind of like a missing middle housing that I think sometimes gets forgotten when we focus more on, you know, lower income or workforce housing. But this is at market rate, so that's good. But I had a specific question about, do you have plans for EV charging stations at all in that garage or on the parking lot? And what are you doing, or if anything, to be sustainable? Do you consider solar on any parts of the building?
Well, I know there's been some discussion about, I'll start with solar. There's been some discussion about that. I know that that Peter has an interest in it, but I'm not sure exactly where that's going. We had discussed using it on portions of the building.
Oh, of course, I broke my mask. Why not? As to your question about the plan right now is twofold in terms of that. There are just a number of amenities that in the project that are very up to date for Class A properties. So I'm going to focus on a couple of them. One is we have a room set aside for basically scooters and bicycles that will also provide electricity for charging of electric bicycles, scooters, and so forth. That area is about 1,500 square feet. That's specifically designed as more electrified bicycles and scooters and so forth are done. In addition to that, we're probably going to start off with about 20 wall chargers for specifically for electric vehicles. The way that we do them is that we put them all in one place in the garage. We have a separate set of electric meters that just are specifically for those, because it's important that the car owners that utilize it get charged directly for the electric use. Just to back up a second, in terms of sustainability of our 171 unit projects, everything meets what I call, at least what I'm more used to, the green standards that are required by Florida Housing Finance. That is everything from appliances, insulation, all of the things that are required now to meet green standards and so forth. It's a very important part of it. One of the things I'd like to direct you to is that this is sort of going backwards. In the 197 car parking garage, there is a very large roof area that set aside in our construction costs is a $250,000 roof. It is my intention that we seek to put solar panels on the top of that roof. That would, and its design is pretty simple. It's designed to basically provide the house electric to run the project during the year. The house electric cost, now when I say house, I'm not talking about the units. This is to pay the electric for running the exterior of the project, its lights and so forth, from street lights to the rest of it. That budget is now without any kind of help from solar. Is about $55,000 a year, consistent with our other projects of this type. And if we decide to proceed with the solar, which I suggest that we do, the additional cost of around $400,000 to do that, it's kind of simple arithmetic. Setting the tax credits for it aside, if we have $55,000 a year of electric costs that we can basically nearly eliminate, it provides an extra source of funding to pay for that, the solar itself. I'm sorry, it's a little bit diverted from my original, but those are the plans that we have at this point. Going back to the project, since it is designed to be strictly an A project, we have a couple of thousand square feet of amenities that are specifically designed to meet all of the requirements for a exercise rooms, a TV room, so to speak, gathering space, party space, the area that is, in fact, if you look at the building that's at the left back, you'll see basically what's facing us is right where the pool and a pool area is going to be. So it's designed to be incorporated with one another. In the lobby area, just to divert to that, in addition, there'll be 24-hour service there for most of the workday. It'll be a staff of the apartment, but a security and fire monitoring security person will be at the front desk 24 making it 24 hours. And in that, the tenants, big deal now with our projects is package deliveries from Amazon and so forth. There will be a package room that's quite large. It will have a series of lockers. And what we do, every tenant will have an application as part of the project application that if they receive a package, that tenant, they'll get a notice on this application. It'll give them a code so that when they come to the project or come to the project itself front desk, they'll have the code. They can go into the room, scan it to the locker, and be able to pick up their packages. Don't ask me what we'll do at Christmas time. That's a separate question. I think that a couple of things about affordability. One of the things that's very important to us is that looking at this project in 10, 20, 30 years, which will be easily its active life. One of the things that people misunderstand is that Pinellas County defines affordable housing as 120% of AMI and under. In most cases right now, 120% of AMI exceeds the market rent that you can rent them for today. But the way that these things proceed, as time goes by, the AMI 120% rents will be exceeded eventually by the market rents, which will increasingly put a cap on, as market rents usually increase faster than the restricted rents. The restricted rents will become more and more an effective cap on rent increases for the project as time goes on. We need to look at this project as where it's going to be 10, 20, 30 years from now. In that vein, and we've set aside 40 of the parking places to start out that are going to be effectively solely dedicated to the use of retail and commercial office tenants and so forth that are in the neighborhood. And we'll have a normal parking fee for it, but they will be dedicated to it throughout the workday. And I think that's an important, again, today, maybe not so much demand, but going out 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now, there may be a sense that that may not even be enough. And we have an arrangement to provide more flexibility, to provide more off-site parking to off-site persons if it's required. I think the other thing that I wanted to talk about briefly is the financing structure. And this is where I want to just, I don't know how to get to I need help. Okay, put it right there. This I describe as this financing plan is a Rubik's Cube of financing. And it has to be done this way. There are two parts. The county, we've done a number of land lease projects with the county whereby they buy the land from who's ever selling it. In this case, it would be the CRA to the county land trust for an appraised value. And then the county land trust in turn, let's use a number. If they buy it for $1 million, the annual rent starting off for the first 5 years will be about $10,000. This provides a significant lower cap rate in effect for all of the land costs that can be added to the permanent mortgage of the project. The other thing that's new with the county, never done before this year, is the Penny for Economic Development Grant, which is also included in this. We actually applied to the county before we applied to the CRA for a $2.2 million grant. So between the two of those things, the land lease itself provides $3,420,000. That's $20,000 a unit in effect to purchase the land from the CRA. And the county grant provides another $2.2 million. So that part, very critical to the project. Marrying it with the city's portion, which includes the CRA approving the use of its land sale proceeds to be sent back to the project as a grant to help it be financed, including then $880,000 of home loan that has somewhat about 200,000 of it paid immediately at over a 20-year period. And then the balance of it, about $680,000, will be deferred for some period of time of 40 or 50 years. And then the last part of it is the city basically granting $800,000 of additional funds that's, I think, focused or thought about as being for providing the parking places, if you will, for the public. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Leach?
What? Oh,
Vice Mayor?
Yes, I was curious about the type of construction. Is this, I'm looking at the picture, it looks very nice. Is this a block frame? Is that a real brick or is that struck block? What is that exactly?
No, the project itself is basically built frame construction. Everything else in it, the walls and so forth, are going to be a great deal of concrete. And Brian, you can speak to this if you wish, but I think I can probably cover this. If we had to use concrete to build the whole project, the price would be probably 50% more in terms of what it would cost to build it.
Other questions, Vice Mayor?
No questions, but I just wanted to make a comment. It's a great site. I mean, this really fulfills a dream that I've had for 18 years on this site. The DDB was involved with this too on the cleanup on the front end, and I've had my eye on this as a potential site to really help establish vibrancy in the downtown. I'm so happy we're having this many units. Will really make a big difference on people that are putting feet on the street in our downtown. So I'm very happy with this project. Thank you.
Other questions? Well, Mr. Leach has a very good reputation. He's done some dynamite projects down on Garden Avenue, Betty, over off of MLK and Court Street. So I feel very comfortable with that. Ms. Thompson Mr. Leach answered one of my questions about how the money was flowing from us to the county and then back to the project. What are I mean, I just did a back of the napkin estimation of what the taxes are going to be. Do you have something that's more
I have not estimated
substantial
taxes yet, but we can get that number to you.
Well, I'd like to know it. I mean, I looked at the total development costs. I don't know what the project would be assessed at, but it is significant and it will help with the TIF. But I would like to know roughly what that is so that we can at least talk about our return on investment. I mean, Councilmember Hamilton and I were on the council when we bought this property. It was brownfields area. So it is great to see something of this magnitude and quality being built. Are there any other questions, or do I have a motion to authorize our staff to finish a contract?
A motion to approve agenda item 4.2.
Second.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 4.2? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Anything else, Ms. Thompson?
I do have a few updates, and just so you know, you will hear about this project again later today in your work session and at your Wednesday night meeting for the city's portion of the home loan. So just know there'll be many companion items along with this. So a few updates for holiday extravaganza, which will run from Thanksgiving through December 21st. We do have 4 movies scheduled in the downtown in the CMA lot, and then also in the Economy Inn lot in the downtown gateway. We are very close to securing the Ferris wheel, bringing Dreamland Amusements back. So we'll have some rides there, additional lighting, and then we're working with the library to provide make and take kits for different holiday crafts for children and families that'll be in different locations throughout the CRA. If you are a property owner in the Downtown Development Board District, your ballots are due tomorrow. We will begin counting those at 3 p.m. As wearing your hat as City Council, we're also bringing forward amendments to the Ddb Ordinance the first week of November. And I just want to let you guys know that the Ddb did approve $50,000 towards the Back to Business grants, and they provided over $50,000 to the DCMA in the past 7 months to help with their programming. So they're in the midst of a 2-year culminating process of really helping to further define who they are and providing additional support to local businesses. The lighting project. So Scott Salza, who's one of the new co-presidents of the DCMA, spoke out about the Cleveland Street lighting project at one of your last council meetings. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of confusion. This idea was brought forward by 3 of our downtown advocates and business owners, Lena Teixeira, Janelle Branch, and Eleanor Lydia. Among that group, they selected Eleanor to be their representative, to serve on the RFP committee to reviewing the project, and to be the communication and liaison between the CRA and all the other downtown groups as this was going forward. And the committee, including, Eleanor as a representative, voted the project 100%. Let's keep working with Moment Factory. Let's find out some more information about how to bring the lighting down the street. And then Ms. Branch participated in a video call with the designers who are located in Montreal about different design options for bringing it down the street. We're still waiting on that information, but after hearing those comments, I've spoken with all the original committee members, reached out to Mr. Salza as well. And I think we're just going to take a step back. I'm getting a quote from Moment Factory for design services because it's a big project. A lot of people have a lot of ideas. And you guys know, because you serve as representatives, but sometimes people want to speak and input directly, not via a representative. So just to let you know, that project is not stopped. We're going to try to set up some times where we can get site visits from the designers so that they can really explain to everybody in person really the technical requirements of what different options are. And we're still, because the CRA covers a large area, we're still going to be looking at from the waterfront all the way down to Missouri, all the way down Cleveland Street, and getting a different idea of what options and costs are for that larger area. The last thing I will say about this is Station Square is going to need some investment at some point. It will. there's only one active use that borders Station Square, which is a restaurant area. And when you're in a situation where you have a design where there's no flow through for pedestrians and there's no active uses bordering the park, you're going to have a dead zone. So some type of programming or change will have to happen in that space if we want activity in there. Doesn't mean it has to happen now or even in the next year, but I wouldn't be a good professional for you guys if I let you think that it could just go on and on the way it is. We'll be back in November, December with an updated strategy with the metrics that you've requested. I'll also be reaching out to talk about the survey that we've asked you guys are looking for the larger area. What exactly are we wanting to survey? What do we want to accomplish with that so we can get a proposal together? We will be launching the call for event ideas with Amplify this week. So just to clarify, because I know there's been some confusion around this too, the CRA has given a grant to Amplify as part of our capacity building to have them help walk event producers through our city's special event process in combination with getting co-sponsorship from the City Parks and Recreation Program. So now that we've moved into phase 3, we're going to be actively soliciting those ideas and hopefully bringing, a slate of new events for downtown to enjoy. The Chalk Fest was the first one of those events that Amplify is producing. The Opportunity Zone advertising campaign, we will hope to send letters out to each property owner last week of October, first week of November, saying, please let us know what you want to do with your property. And here's what we're doing to market these properties locally, regionally, nationally, pulling that information together. And last but not least, I spent Saturday morning with our Citizens Academy participants doing a tour downtown, and it was wonderful. It was amazing. It's one of those moments that really touches you back into why we do the work we do, and a lot of hope and possibility. At the end, they are saying, how can we support? How can we get involved? And I am thinking about, and I would like you guys to think about, how do we continually engage residents who don't have a specific business interest or property interest in downtown? And of course, there's the suggestions of attend events, support the restaurants, right? Tell your neighbors and friends you've had a good experience. But I think for these community leaders who are looking for more substantial ways, we'd like to provide a venue or avenue to really harness that positive energy so they feel like they can do something every day or every week that's supporting downtown. But the group was extremely positive. They wanted downtown to enjoy. They feel good about the changes that are coming. So I wanted to share that back with you. I know you'll interact with the participants and just let you know that we're thinking about how can we harness that positive energy.
Any questions for Ms. Thompson? All right, very good. Thank you. We will look forward to those additional reports. So we will adjourn the CRA and call to order the pension trustees. I would ask if there are any amendments to the minutes of the August 17th, 2020 pension trustees meeting.
Move approval as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. We don't need to read the disclaimers again, do we, Ms. Aiken? Ms. Call? Okay. Are there any citizens to be heard on the pension advisory? Seeing none, item 4.1.
Good morning, trustees. Jay Ravens, Finance Director. Item 4.1, approve pension plan expenditures for fiscal year 2021, totaling not to exceed $381,300. This request is for approval of various administrative expenditures for the plan for fiscal year 2021. This includes all administrative expenditures other than certain professional service contracts that have already been brought to the trustees separately, such as the actuary contract and the money manager agreements. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Ravens on item 4.1?
Move approval of agenda item 4.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 4.2.
Approve an agreement with Northern Trust Investments, Inc. for investment in the Northern Trust Collective Russell 1000 Growth Index Large Cap Growth Equity Fund, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. This request is for approval of the addition of a new money manager for the pension plan. Currently, the pension plan has only one money manager in the large cap growth equity investment category, Voya, with a relatively large 12.6% allocation of the investment portfolio, totaling approximately $140 million. The Pension Investment Committee is recommending the addition of a passive index large cap growth fund managed by our custodian, Northern Trust. We have been investing in a similar passive index fund in the large cap value category with Northern Trust since 2007. The committee feels the addition of this passively managed index fund in this category will reduce the current risk and volatility of the large cap growth category. We are recommending an initial allocation of $30 million, but expect to increase the allocation over time if the investment manager's performance warrants it. The investment money manager fees will be 3 basis points with a 1 basis point cap on administrative fees. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Ravens? Mr. Ravens, this is an interesting move during a time like this, especially when the indexes have done so well. What was the impetus to going to passive versus staying active?
We have always, we've always seen that this category in particular, large cap growth, as if there was any category in the plan where we would be passively invested, it would be large cap growth. It's a very efficient area of the market. It's very difficult for money managers to earn alpha. And to that point, our current manager over the past 5 years has been underperforming the index. They've still been at about the 50th percentile, but have been significant. Well, to us, it's a significant underperformance of the index. The index has been performing at about the 25th percentile. So they're not alone in underperforming, but we felt like it was justified with their large allocation to put at least a portion of that passive and ride that index along with, it gives us other options if the money manager also continues to underperform.
Is he on a watch?
He is
Him or her or the company? Are you exploring other avenues rather than staying with Voya?
We haven't done a search yet, but we're watching Voya. If we don't see improvement over the next couple of quarters, there's a real possibility that we will be doing a search. The index fund gives us the opportunity to move money in the interim because, as you're aware, it takes a while to get a new manager on board.
I think it's an interesting time to go with more passive. You are correct. That is one of the most efficient segments of the market, but in really tumultuous times like we have. And the indexes also, there's been certain companies that have really driven that. So you're really investing in some of those large cap growth, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, those type of companies. You're getting an overweight in those. So I would assume this is not an even weighted. This isn't an even weighted index, is it?
I'm sorry.
This is not an even weighted index. So for instance, this is tracking the Russell 1000.
Correct.
This isn't going to be evenly weighted amongst the 1,000 stocks. There's cap weightings to the larger companies.
I can't answer your question.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I have a motion.
Move approval of agenda item 4.2.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Item 4.3.
Approve the new hires for acceptance into the pension plan as listed.
Any questions? Have a motion?
Move approval of agenda item 4.3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 4.4.
Approve the new hires for acceptance into the pension plan as listed.
Move agenda,
Questions?
move approval of agenda item 4.4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 4.5.
Approve the following request of employees: Andrea Bean, Engineering Department; Darla Collimore, Police Department; Judith Crawford, Public Utilities; Brian Deemling, Customer Service Department; Roberta Glusky, Engineering Department; Rodney Johnson, Police Department; William Keller, Fire Department; Nat Medlin, Police Department; and Jeffrey Nolan, Information Tech Department, for a regular pension as provided by sections 2.416 and 2.424 of the employee's pension plan.
Any questions?
Move approval of agenda item 4.5.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 4.6.
Approve the following request of employees: Michael Alexka, Fire Department; Sean Allister, Police Department; Michael England, Marine and Aviation Department; Michael Hutto, Fire Department; Clifford Norris, Parks and Recreation Department; Sharon Rodriguez, Police Department; John Schauder, Marine and Aviation Department; and Daniel Tuppence, Police Department, for a regular pension as provided by sections 2.416 and 2.424 of the employee's pension plan.
Any questions for Mr. Ravens?
Move approval.
Vice Mayor?
Why do we have two separate, is there readings for the same thing? Why not combine these?
It was due to the cancellation of the July Pension Advisory Committee due to COVID-related issues. That meeting being canceled, these items are directly from the items approved by the Pension Advisory Committee for the two meetings. They weren't combined, or separate.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Move approval of agenda item 4.6.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 4.7.
Approve the following request of employee Douglas Ambrose, Police Department, to vest his pension as provided by section 2.419 of the employee's pension plan.
Any questions?
Move approval of agenda item 4.7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 4.8.
Approve the following request of employee Christopher Nelson, Fire Department, to vest his pension as provided by section 2.419 of the employee's pension plan.
Any questions?
Move approval of agenda item 4.8.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Anything else, Mr. Ravens?
No, sir.
All right, we will adjourn the pension trustees, reconvene the work session. Item 2.1.
Thank you, Mayor. Authorize an amendment to the original agreement with HR&A Advisors of New York, in an amount not to exceed $35,000 for the development of a multi-parcel request for proposal document, as well as expense related to the review of submitted proposals, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Dell.
Mayor, Council, Michael Delka, Assistant City Manager. This agenda item is to provide some additional funding to close out what I would call the final chapter on the consultant work with HR&A with regard to the solicitation of proposals for the bluff sites. Just to briefly kind of recap where we are, during the original scope of work, we expanded the process for solicitation from one parcel with an RFP to all three bluff sites and a request for expressions of interest. We wanted to try to obtain some additional direction in terms of where the market was and what the responses would be conceptually to one or more of the three parcels. You know, are ready to revisit that now with the final RFP. Some of our change philosophically or approach to this project is that we're going to revisit, excuse me, let me go back to my, this incorporates a two-step solicitation. Again, we amended the process to have the RFEI, the request for expressions of interest. So we're going to be soliciting for the 3 sites, not the 1 site. We want to provide additional market context based on the responses to the RFEI and include additional direct developer outreach for this process. Our goals for this final chapter, if you will, is to bolster the value offering for the developers, try to provide a very positive framing for the development opportunity in the 1 and 3 sites. We want to better articulate the flexibility for increased height and bulk, particularly with regard to the Harborview site. We want to be more definitive about pulling together the incentive package that we can market with the 1 or more of these properties. And we also want to better articulate the creative options with the Pierce Street site pursuant to our earlier discussion, which may include the possibility of a land swap. Secondly, we want the RFP to reflect the city's decommitment to the project. I think in that regard, we plan to have some conversations with our public communications and the CRA departments in terms of how to maybe integrate some of you into the marketing to show that we are putting our best foot forwards and are committed to the redevelopment of the waterfront. We also would like to work with the city attorney's office and provide some additional clarity where possible in terms of how the future referendum project may work and how we would integrate any proposals into that future referendum project. And also take a look at whether or not we might provide some polling opportunity for our community in order to gauge where the concerns are, the opportunities, if you will, and so that we can provide some additional clarity when we go to the market, we go to the development list in terms of what that future looks like. The referendum obviously is a key component for us in terms of moving the project forward. It's also an area of great uncertainty to the development community as we market these properties. So figuring out how to put our best foot forward between both the development community in terms of the bluff opportunities, as well as where the community is comfortable from a market standpoint, as we propose the utilization of these properties to activate the park and the waterfront, I think is very important. So for that, we've gotten a proposal from HR&A. This will include the final bit of work needed to pull this together, as well as some additional dollars that we will be looking for some assistance from them in terms of the final evaluation of the RFPs. So with that, I'll try to answer any questions that you may have regarding this project or proposal.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, in our last meeting, we talked about possibilities that we were open to pretty much anything. And we did talk about possible land swap of, if you're talking about uncertainty, is that going to really apply in the RFP? Because it seems to me that if you're putting an RFP out, and we've said that's going to be very uncertain to a developer with that particular piece of land. I mean, is that going to hamper that any, in your opinion, Michael?
I'm not sure what we'll get back. I mean, we have the 3 properties. We're leaving it about as wide open as we can leave it. So I think it really is going to depend on the market and what kind of market opportunity somebody sees with the Pierce Street site. I mean, going all the way back to some of the original studies that we did, we've always kind of identified that as not to say that it's not an important piece, because it's clearly as part of our bluff property assets. But from an economic development standpoint, it's not as critical as the other two sites. So I think, to the extent that there's uncertainty, yes, that's not always, doesn't inure to our best benefit. But on the other hand, we clearly stated a willingness to consider a land swap for that. So I think we should articulate that in the RFP, but try to define maybe the circumstances under which we would consider a swap, but not preclude anyone from proposing a viable economic use of that property if they choose to do that. So it may impact where and how partnerships for one or more of the properties occurs. My speculation would be that the market will reflect this as being the least important of the three bluff properties as we have previously assessed. And so there may be some much bigger opportunities available otherwise in a swap situation for us. But certainly I think we're leaving all the cards on the table, which I would recommend that we do.
Oh, absolutely. And I just wanted to make sure that we write it in a way that goes out very clearly to developers that, give us your best shot, give us the best idea on this. The other thing I'm concerned about too is the timing of this. What is your timing on getting the RFP out?
Well, I think HRNA has submitted this revision as we've asked them to, with the idea in mind that we will try to get this RFP on the street before the end of the year. So I kind of like the timing, as we talked before, that the RFP is going to be on the street at the point we have demonstrated construction on the waterfront. I think that is, that's very helpful to us.
Other questions for Mr. Delk? Are you done, Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Beckman.
Well, I was wondering how confident, well, first of all, does the RFP, is it going to reflect some of the uncertainty we have with the library and expenses, and then finalizing expenses with the Imagine Clearwater Park? So I know that there's some uncertainty in those two areas, and I just want to know how much certainty do we want to have, or that needs to be reflected in that RFP if you want to get it out by the end of the year?
Councilman Beckman, I suspect that we'll have less uncertainty about how this project interacts with the library and the park at the time that the RFP is issued later this year. And the reason I say that is that we are expecting a final design package and a cost breakdown for the park redevelopment project on November 2nd. And I think that'll help provide us some clarity. We will start to see definitively where we are with the new design of the park, which we've not yet fully costed out. And we'll look at the various components of the park in terms of what we want to afford to do now versus what we may want to incorporate into future additional development of the park. So it'll really start to focus our project in terms of its scope, consistent with our resources that we want to bring to bear right after the 1st of November. So I think, once we have that, we'll make some more definitive determinations with regard to the park itself and the library and how those two mesh together. So I would hope that we'll have both of those in place when we draft the RFP.
Well,
or certainty.
Yeah, I mean, I would think we would have to have those in place. I mean, right?
Well, I think, technically they're kind of a little bit different projects from the standpoint of the funding of the park and the library. There's clearly some overlap, but those two projects can stand on their own collectively or independently. So we're going to approach them that way because our focus there is to have the cost of that project ultimately be consistent with the resources that we want to bring to it in terms of the overall project cost. I think there's some additional latitude with how we structure any agreements that we have coming out of the RFP process for the bluff. So
Okay, and then you said you want to more aggressively go, communicate with developers. Are you confident that we're going to get a wide variety of responses to an RFP?
I'm optimistic that we can get a good response. I think the RFP is very important. We've talked to some folks who have additional, expressed additional interest since we got the RFEI back. We've had several conversations with those, and I would also add that if you're aware of anybody of interest in this project, one or more properties, please refer them to us now. Once the RFP is issued and on the street, then our communication with them will be constrained during that solicitation process. So right now is a good time for us to answer any questions that somebody may have in terms if they're thinking of proposing. So I would encourage that, but I think one of the things that I want to do that's very important in this RFP is to better articulate the incentive package that we can bring to bear. I think that that may assist us. I think also communicating our, hopefully if our unanimous support and commitment to the project can help encourage that solicitation as well. We're looking at some good models right now, some in the region, what St. Petersburg has done and some others that really give us a lot of good, I think, some good ideas for how to market the Bluff property. So I think this is a very important step. I don't know that we need a large number of respondents, but we certainly want a high quality or level of response in terms of the projects. And I think, these are very valuable properties. And so I am optimistic.
Okay, and then I guess one question that you can, speak to for the public in general is what are the, why do this now? Why not wait and have the park be developed and wait a year or so? What are the positives and negatives to putting this referendum out right now before putting the RFP out as we're just starting to put shovels in the ground? So,
I think waiting is one of our biggest enemies in terms of confidence in the market, confidence in what we're doing. I think, we're bringing tens of millions of dollars to bear to redevelop the waterfront. We've looked at major investments in the library and activating the waterfront. I just, I think that the market potential really needs us to show confidence and commitment to it. And so I think that having the RFP on the street at the time that we're in the process of undergoing major redevelopment of the waterfront is the best way to put our best foot forward, if you will, in terms of reaching out to the development community and asking them to consider major investments at the same time. So I think waiting at this point is clearly not in our own best interest from the standpoint of creating market optimism and market certainty in our downtown. So I would strongly recommend that we move forward aggressively on those fronts that we are able to do so.
Michael, let me add one comment to that. Councilmember Beckman, the administration has been criticized, specifically me, for how long it's taken us to get to this point. If you go back to when the referendum on Imagine Clearwater was approved and the various stages that we have gone through, a lot of the concern and criticism has fallen on my shoulders as to why it's taken us so long. Some of the council members are very familiar with that. So from the administration perspective, we don't have any time to waste. We need to move forward because the council members, not just this council, but the previous council, has given us direction to move as quickly as we can. So,
okay, as long as we can afford, as long as fiscally we're responsible and we can afford these things.
Well, this is ultimately going to help us pay for other things. So this is not as much an expenditure as it is revenue potentially. Councilmember Hamilton.
Yeah, I come out a little different, and to what the city manager said, we've been waiting a long time, and waiting in the construction, when you're talking about doing major construction, waiting only costs more money. And we want to get the RFP out there. I'd love to see 15 or 20 responses to the RFP, but we might only get 1 or 2. But if we really like, all we got to do is like one of them. That's all we got to do. And so I'm much more of an optimist than I am a pessimist. I look forward to getting this out there, and I like the path that Assistant Manager Delk is laid out.
What we're doing today with this is just authorizing an additional $35,000. Was HR&A involved in the RFEI?
Yes, we expanded the original scope to include that altered process.
So that's the reason I want to ask, are they the right company to be helping us with the RFP, seeing as the response from the RFEI was probably not what we had hoped for?
I think they've done an excellent, have an excellent body of work that they've done on our behalf. So I have little hesitancy about recommending them for this work. I don't believe that it was a failure on their part in terms of the lack of response to the RFEI. It was disappointing, frankly, but not terribly surprising. I think, given the kind of the discussion we have right now going on, I think I would be much more concerned about the quantity of our respondents than the quality of our respondents rather than the quantity. And I think HR&A can help us pull together a good RFP for this process. But the market realities and the uncertainty that we kind of bring to the table as a client, if you will, I think is kind of a little bit of our battle to overcome. But I think they're very capable of helping us at this stage get the RFP issued in a way that gives us a good chance for success in solicitation. And we've continued to get a lot of inquiries since the RFEI process is concluded. So that gives me a certain reason for optimism as well. We'll probably have some additional respondents to the RFP that we did not have, most certainly in the RFEI process.
And this is a balancing act with the RFP. I mean, first of all, I want the private sector to come forward with what they think is feasible, because if it isn't, they're not going to follow with money. At the same time, we have to be aware that this would be a referendum item. And so it's got to be a balance between what works from a market standpoint, but also what will pass with the citizens. And I hope that, as this RFP is developed, that everyone is cognizant of that and looks at our past history of what has been approved and then what has been denied by citizens. We need to go in with our eyes wide open on that topic.
We want to be very transparent, very specific about our objectives. I believe that that'll lend confidence to the process. And we need confidence in the process when we go to our electorate and ask them to support whatever plans that we may generate from these proposals.
Vice Mayor, you had something else?
Yeah, just reading from the HR&A documents on this item. The RFEI was just a part of a two-step solicitation, just to get interest, what the market at that time. But you're really going to get. I always thought that the RFP has more expanded scope of solicitation materials and documents anyway. So now we're going to be able to get right down to the meat of it, and I'll be real. I'm glad this is going out. What I'd like to see is some dirt turned over, and imagine Clearwater. We have to start that, before this RFP hits the market, because they know we're actually serious about doing this. We got trailers out there now. I mean, we're right on the cusp of really getting this thing going. I think that'll help drive the market and get some good responses.
On to one of the other comments of, waiting, I can understand that to an extent. I mean, if there was a complete project, it's easier for people to visualize what's going to be there. But at the same time, this was an issue we had on the beach. We don't want to be under construction in the zone forever. That also kind of inhibits overall acceptance of things. I mean, at some point you want the dust to stop flying. That was a real issue out on the beach, especially with European travelers, because the travel agencies have some liability to make certain that their clients are having a good experience. We don't probably have that same issue in downtown, but it's still something to consider. Councilmember Bunker, you're muted.
I just wanted to say I agree with the need to move forward with this, and getting to work on the park is going to be a major factor in getting some more interest going.
Consent? Okay, item 3.1.
Support Environmental Protection Agency fiscal year 2021 Brownfield Assessment Grant Application. Ms. Sanderson.
Thank you. Good morning. Denise Sanderson, Director of Economic Development and Housing. Council, this item is simply to brief you on the public, you and the public, of the city's intention to submit a brownfield assessment grant application to the EPA. Typically, we do when we pursue a grant, we have a robust public engagement effort, but due to the pandemic, EPA has encouraged modified engagement strategies such as today's forum. Council approval of the grant application is not required. The request for applications was released in August and our submittal is due October 28th. If awarded, the community-wide assessment grant will provide the city with $300,000 to be used for phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments of sites perceived to be contaminated by hazardous substances and/or petroleum. Additionally, a portion of the grant funds may be used to support direct administrative costs. Therefore, the grant requires no matching funds from the city. Since 1997, the city has received over $4.7 million in EPA, Florida DEP, and other brownfields related funding. Funds have been used for more than 100 projects, including phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments and cleanup activities. As a result, numerous sites have been cleaned up and ready for reuse. And as discussed earlier today, one of those sites is the 306 South Washington Avenue site, formerly known as Clearwater Auto Salvage. As you know, it is proposed to construct 171 workforce housing units and public accessible structured parking. And what's really important about the work done at that site through the Brownsfield program is that a site rehab completion order was issued without condition by FDEP in July 2009. And this is a really important declaration, and it's why we have a Brownfields program, and that it provides assurances that the property no longer presents a health risk. It provides liability protections to the future owners and developers and makes the property bankable again. The city's long and successful history of this program has unfortunately also been its Achilles heel. We've not been a recipient of the grant fund for several years, though I am very optimistic in this round we will be successful. The announcement of the grant awards is anticipated in spring or early summer 2021. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Sanderson? Ms. Cole, is there any reason this can't go on consent? I don't see a resolution.
It's actually not an action item, Mayor.
Okay, just informational.
Yes, sir.
All right. Item 3.2, Vice Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you for a moment, okay? I offer consent on the next 3 items.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Approve the First Amendment to Agreement Number 106-2020 between Clearwater Housing Finance Corporation and the City of Clearwater for use of coronavirus relief funds and authorize the appropriate officials to execute site. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Chuck Lane, Assistant Director, Economic Development and Housing Department. This morning, I'll be presenting 2 items related to additional funds to be distributed to the city from the Federal CARES Act to address COVID-19 impacts. For this item, coronavirus relief funds are being distributed through the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. This is the second allocation of these funds. On August 6th, Council approved the agreement with Florida Housing for the first allocation of $375,576. You're being asked to approve an amendment to that agreement, which provides for the second allocation of $258,970 for a total allocation of $634,536. The guidelines for use of these funds are established by the state, and they're very specific. You can only use the funds to assist residents affected by COVID-19 with their housing expenses. In order to qualify, residents must have suffered income loss due to COVID-19, and their total household income must not exceed 120% of area median income. As was the case with the first allocation, we'll use these funds to assist qualifying residents with past due rent, mortgage, and utility assistance or utility payments. We paused this program a few weeks back because we felt the number of applications that we received was going to approach the funding level that we had available. We plan to reopen the program on Monday, the 19th, and it will remain open until these funds are depleted.
I'm guessing yes.
Residents in need of help are encouraged to apply. They can do so by going to myclearwater.com/RMU assistance. There will be a link to an online application on that website. That webpage also contains information of contact information for housing staff should anyone have any questions or difficulty with the application.
Oh, on down here? Oh, okay. I was like pressing that silver thing. I was like, I don't think that's the button.
No, yeah, on the handle or the.
Gotcha.
Are there any questions? Okay. Everybody okay with consent?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item 3.3.
Approve a loan in the amount of $880,000 to SB Clearwater WFH LLC using Home Investment Partnership Program funding for the development of property at 306 South Washington Avenue, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute documents required to effect closing. Mr. Lane. Yeah.
This item was presented to you at the CRA meeting this morning. It's a developer proposal for workforce housing on CRA-owned property at 306 South Washington Avenue. The project calls for 171 units. 104 of the units will be reserved for 120% of AMI, area median income, of course, 49 units at 100% of AMI, and 18 units at 80% AMI. The total development costs are estimated to be about $38.5 million. As Ms. Thompson explained earlier, the developer is seeking funding from multiple sources. Among them is a request for Home Investment Partnership Program funding. This source, as you know, is made available to the city through the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. The proposal is to provide an interest-free loan on the property in the amount of $880,000. The developer will pay back $200,000 of this loan over the affordability over 20 years, and the remaining $680,000 will be deferred over the affordability period. Home program requirements require that we have a 20-year affordability period at minimum. Staff has reviewed projected revenues and expenses of the apartment complex, and we've determined that this is an appropriate investment and arrangement. This type of investment is also consistent with HUD guidelines. Using home funds on a project will require us to put a land use restriction agreement on the property, requiring that 11 units are leased to households at or below 80% of area median income. Every year, HUD establishes maximum high and low home rental rates. With this agreement, 9 of the units will be at the high home rate, which is $791 a month for a 1-bedroom and $1,007 for a 2-bedroom. And 2 of the units will be rented at the low home rates, which is $660 a month for 1-bedroom and $838 for a 2-bedroom. HUD adjusts these rates annually. I'll take questions, please.
Any questions? Councilman Beckman.
Yeah, I have one question, Chuck, about the number of units that are at 100% or below 80%. And those are those minimum requirements set by HUD, and this developer, this development will just be at those minimums. They're not offering any extras. Is that correct?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. What I will say is that it's the developers put together this income mix, a mixed income approach, where they're allowing a certain number of units at 120 and below, a certain number at 100 and below, and a certain number at 80 and below.
Okay, so if they have that you said we have 11 at or below 80%, can we ask for 15 at 80% or below, or?
They're actually reserving 18 at 80 and below. The reason that we have 11 is because if we go over 11 units with home program money, it requires us to comply with Davis-Bacon, which that's not the issue. The issue is the administrative burden that comes with complying with Davis-Bacon and all that reporting. So we're leaving our contribution to cover 11 units, although they are covering 18 at 80 and below.
Okay. Are there minimum? So the minimum is 11 or something. There's a threshold about this Davis-Bacon thing, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if we go over 11, then we have an administrative burden.
Okay.
On us that we prefer not to have.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? I'll take the reign. Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions on this companion item? Consent?
Yes.
3.4.
Approve the second substantial amendment to the City of Clearwater's 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan to reallocate existing funding and to budget for additional funding provided by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development to address needs resulting from the COVID-19 emergency. Mr. Lane, again.
In addition to the COVID-related funding I presented a moment ago, we were receiving an additional $858,968 of community development block grant funding to address impacts caused by COVID-19. HUD requires us to amend our annual action plan in order to budget and ultimately use these funds. This is our second allocation of CDBG COVID money. Earlier this year, Council approved our first amendment to accept the first allocation of $492,592. These funds are a bit more flexible than the funds provided through the state, although the income limit is lower. People assisted with CDBG funds must not exceed 80% of area median income. We can use it for housing expenses, but we can also use it for other purposes. What we found through our experience during this COVID crisis and with communicating with other local governments and nonprofits, that the most effective and direct way to help citizens is through assistance with their housing expenses. For this reason, the majority of the available CDBG COVID money will be applied to the rent, mortgage, and utilities assistance program. We're also budgeting $154,000 to help nonprofits that can deliver public services to help people through the crisis. We're also able to use 20% of the funds for administration. The amendment also cleans up some things from our first amendment. HUD guidance following the first allocation came out very late, and it really kind of moved the goalpost on us. So we found it very difficult to use these funds for our business assistance program. We're going to reprogram unused funds from the first allocation to the rent, mortgage, and utilities assistance program. We also budgeted $300,000 in home funds with the first allocation towards an emergency rent program. With the additional allocations I'm presenting to you today, we feel that program is fully funded, or adequately funded. So we're going to reprogram those home funds back to housing projects. So I'll take questions now, please.
Questions for Mr. Lane? Councilmember Beckman.
Hi, Chuck. On the legislative text on page 2, I just wanted to clarify. I figured it out, but I just want to make sure. RMU means rent, mortgage, utilities assistance, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you have under home, we have multifamily new construction, owner occupied land acquisition. Is owner occupied land acquisition, is that like when we have land that we donate to Habitat for Humanity? Is that an example of that?
That's an example of that, yes.
Okay. And then owner occupied new construction, that would be a Habitat, that could be a Habitat home as well?
Correct.
Okay. What's another example of that owner occupied new construction?
Well, if we were to do a townhome project
okay.
with home funds, that kind of thing, multifamily.
Okay. And then the administration total seems kind of high. If we go from 98 at current and 171,000 additional, do you have, is that a larger time frame, or why is that such a big jump there with those funds?
CDBG always provides that we
10% or
20%.
20? Okay. Okay. And that's where that falls into that 20%?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Consent?
Yes.
Item 3.5.
Find that certain areas of the North Greenwood study area are together a blighted area as defined in the Community Redevelopment Act of 1969, and that there is a need for a community redevelopment agency to carry out community redevelopment and adopt resolution 20-52. Mr. Blight.
City staff, including representatives from the city manager's office, the city attorney's office, planning and development, economic development and housing, the CRA, and public communications. We've been working with the Clearwater Urban Leadership Coalition now for about a year. The coalition is a group of concerned and engaged stakeholders that want to see socioeconomic improvements in the North Greenwood community to achieve economic prosperity, improve the health, self-sufficiency, and resiliency of its residents, utilizing the dedicated funding stream of the CRA. I think the most compelling part of this effort is that it is truly a community-led initiative. Their passion and commitment, together with staff guidance, I think gives us this effort a good chance to succeed and yield positive, lasting change for the community. On Wednesday, you'll be asked to adopt resolution 20-52, which will be the first step in creating a CRA. Just to be clear, this is a new CRA. This is not an expansion of the existing CRA in downtown. While we're not asking you to approve a CRA plan now, that'll be done at a later date. I think it's important that you have an understanding of what you will likely see in that plan as you take this first step. And for this reason, a representative from the Clearwater Urban Leadership Coalition is planning to briefly present on Wednesday evening the coalition's vision for the types of programs and services that they hope to see and desired outcomes to mitigate the conditions identified in the findings of necessity report we'll go over in a moment. The CRA planning process, once underway, will take a great deal of public involvement and will be brought back to council for approval at the appropriate time. So now we'll try to focus a little bit on just the staff recommendation for today. So by adopting this resolution, you'll be making a finding that the proposed North Greenwood redevelopment area is a blighted area, and that a CRA is necessary to improve economic conditions. This finding is supported by a findings of necessity report, which again we'll go over in a moment. By adopting this resolution, you're requesting the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners delegate to the city redevelopment powers enumerated in the Community Redevelopment Act of 1969. With this resolution, you are requesting authority from the Board of County Commissioners to establish a tax increment financing district and a redevelopment trust fund within the North Greenwood area. And lastly, you are requesting city staff to prepare a CRA plan. Following adoption of the resolution, there are a few major steps down the road. The Board of County Commissioners will need to adopt a resolution accepting a findings of necessity and delegate authority to the city, which includes a power to declare itself a community redevelopment agency and establish a tax increment financing district and associated trust fund. Shortly after that, council will be asked to pass a resolution accepting that delegation of authority and declaring itself a CRA. Staff will then take the time to prepare a CRA plan in collaboration with the Clearwater Urban Leadership Coalition. We will likely put out an RFP to procure a consultant to take on much of that workload. When complete, staff will present the CRA plan to the Clearwater Community Development Board, who will have 60 days to submit written recommendations to the CRA board. City Council, will need to approve the CRA plan in its capacity as the CRA board and as City Council. The Board of County Commissioners will need to approve the CRA plan by resolution and may pass an ordinance at that time establishing a trust fund for the county side of the tax increment. Lastly, City Council will need to pass an ordinance creating a trust fund using the most recent assessment roll as the base year. This is a large task and will incur costs that are not budgeted in the current year. At a future council meeting, staff will ask council to make available the necessary funds. Staff anticipates a need for somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 In the current fiscal year, those funds will be primarily to fund the development of the CRA plan. So back to today's staff recommendation. Everything that Resolution 2052 achieves is based on a finding of need. So we asked Wade Trim to research and prepare a findings of necessity report. They're familiar with our efforts in North Greenwood, and they're also experienced with this type of assignment. This report is the basis for your determination that the North Greenwood area is blighted and in need of government intervention in the form of a CRA in order to approve conditions. At this time, I'd like to introduce Brad Cornelius, Vice President of Wade Trim. He's going to walk you through the report.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. My name is Brad Cornelius, as Mr. Lane had stated, and I'm with Wade Trim, a professional planner and vice president. And I'm very excited to be here with you all this morning to present this very important project. And this is something I think a very, very good thing here for the city. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll get going here. I have a short presentation that I'd like to provide to give you the summary of our findings and necessity study, which I do understand you all have a copy of the full report as well. In terms of the purpose of this, we were asked by the city to look at the North Greenwood area, to look at the opportunities to identify it as potentially as a community redevelopment area, because we do recognize that there are declining building and economic conditions within that area. So that's really the purpose behind what we did behind our study, was to see if we were able to show justification that this area could be designated as a community redevelopment area under Florida statute. In terms of our study, the city asked us to look at 6 sub areas as part of our analysis, and you can see those here on the map. We had the north, I shall go in order here. We had the downtown. And again, as Mr. Lane said, just to be clear, this is not related to your existing CRA. This is an area as part of this study. It is not within your current CRA. So we had the downtown. We had an area that was called a non-low mod area. We had a North Fort Harrison Osceola area. We had a North Greenwood extension area to the north. North Greenwood core in the middle, and then North Osceola there on the west side. So those are the 6 areas that we evaluated in our analysis as part of this project. In terms of the analysis we had to do, we were driven by Florida statute. That's what the city needs to do to designate these as community redevelopment areas, is to show their consistency with what's defined as slum and blight under Florida statute, identify if there's issues related to affordable housing, as well as looking at other factors like poverty and crime and other factors within these communities that lead to slum and blight conditions. So that was our support behind our analysis, was showing meeting those conditions of Florida statute. Just as real briefly, slum and blight, when we use these terms in this project, these are from Florida statute. I don't want anybody to take any preconceived notions of what that is. These are statutory terms that we need to address as part of the process. And these are I won't read these, but these are the definitions of slum and blight within Florida statutes. In terms of our methodology, what we did in terms of our methodology, and this is consistent with statute, is we looked at these 6 areas in comparison to the conditions of the city as a whole. So we had the citywide conditions, and then we compared our 6 areas against the citywide information. But we also did an analysis between the 6 areas to see where we saw a greater prevalence of slum and blight conditions within our 6 areas as well. So we had a comparison citywide as well as a comparison within our 6 areas as part of our analysis. In terms of the areas that we looked at, there were basically 10 main areas that we analyzed as part of the slum and blight. It was poverty, household income, home values, housing vacancy rates, housing affordability, housing conditions, housing crowding, crime and safety, code violations, and the taxable value. So those are the conditions, and those are the areas of analysis that we did look at within these 6 areas. In terms of the significant findings as part of our report, this matrix gives you a summary to show you what our findings are. Where you see in this matrix, yes, and actually let me back up real quickly. On the left are our areas of analysis of our 6 areas. At the top of the chart are the areas of analysis that we did the the work on. So in this chart where you see yes, those are areas where we were able to identify that there were conditions in those areas that were significantly different than the city as a whole, and I'll say significantly different in a negative connotation. So in sense of poverty, a higher poverty rate than the city as a whole. Under a household income, a lower household income as a city as a whole. So that means yes, that we had basically a negative, significant difference between the city as a whole. Where you see the no, what we found in those analyses for those areas were that the information was either very similar to the city as a whole, or it was actually better. Again, better like in housing vacancy would be there was a lower housing vacancy in an area, so that was better than the city as a whole. But what this matrix I think shows very clearly is how we had a few areas kind of jump out at the top of our analysis that really showed conditions of potential slum and blight. This next slide shows you that even clearer. As you can see between our areas, the North Greenwood core, that area in the middle of our study area, of the 10 areas that we analyzed, they showed significant findings supporting a designation in 9 areas. Our second area was the North Fort Harrison Osceola area at 8, and then our downtown at 7. And then we had a drop off on the other 3 at 5, 4, and 1 with there. So you can see here, we had a pretty strong support for those 3 areas there at the 9, 8, and 7 in terms of the areas where they showed criteria to be shown as slum and blighted. The other part that we did as part of this analysis, when we looked at the 6 areas, one of the things that city staff asked us to do was look at bringing in the downtown to unify that analysis with our North Greenwood core, as well as the North Fort Harrison Osceola area. So actually do an analysis of all 3 of those areas brought together. So when we did that unified analysis, bringing those 3 areas together, which were our top 3 in the chart that I just showed you, we still showed a very strong need for a CRA, showing strong showing strong indicators of slum and blight. Sorry, I had a hard time getting that word out. Strong indicators of slum and blight, showing 8 of those 10 when we did the unification. And in particular, what was important, it met 3 qualifying blight conditions within this area. Now, under statute, you're only required to meet 2. In this case, we can document 3 blight conditions. And the other important factor here is there was other disproportionate factors within this unified area. There was higher poverty issues. There was more issues related to housing affordability, substandard housing, and lower household income and median value. So we also showed there was quite a few other disproportionate factors that supported this area being identified as a slum and blighted area in need of a CRA. This table here shows you the data of this unified area to show you the difference. And I won't go through every one of these, but I'll hit some of the highlights. You see the top of the table there, it's the poverty is 29% within the study area compared to 16% citywide. So much significantly higher in terms of poverty. We look at the median household income, significantly lower, $34,500 in our study area versus $47,000 citywide. And you see that pattern there under median home values. The ones I really want to focus on, though, and those are basically the 3 that we're using in terms of our qualifying conditions, are related to public safety and property maintenance. The crime rate on a per person basis, incidents per 1,000 population within this unified area is twice the rate as it is citywide. We're at 100 incidents per 1,000 population versus a little bit over 50 citywide. This data did come directly from the city, from your police department that we did utilize for this analysis. Similarly, we have a higher fire EMS rate within our study area on calls per 1,000 population, where we have just almost 286 calls per 1,000 versus 211 citywide. So again, we have a higher preponderance of issues related to public safety, crime, and fire EMS. The third part is code enforcement, which we use that to help us when we looked at property maintenance, building safety, and things like that. And how we did this analysis, we looked at a proportionate allocation of the number of code cases related to building code violations, property maintenance violations versus the area of the city that it's in. And what we found in this area is we have a very high density in comparison to the actual land area that accommodate that where this is. So we have almost 19% of all code enforcement cases in the city are in only about 4% of the city area. And that would be these three areas, the downtown, the North Greenwood core, and the North Fort Harris and Osceola area. So a very strong indicator that there is significant issues of property maintenance concerns as well as building concerns. I will also tell you from our field visit and our site visit to the area, we did confirm that just from our visual look of these areas. I will point out that the bottom piece here, taxable property value growth. Just why I think that's important is you can see in actually our study area, it's a little bit higher than the city as a whole, but really what's driving that is the downtown area. That's really what's driving that number to be a little bit higher, but that's okay. It doesn't invalidate any of our other analysis that we've done. We still show the need for the designation to address slum and blight conditions. To finalize on our findings, again, we found that the incidence of crime is higher in this area than the remainder of the city. There's a higher number of fire emergency medical service calls within this area compared to the city, and there's a higher number of code violations within this area as compared to the city as a whole. So those are the three qualifying conditions that we have found to designate this area as a slum and blighted area, and made it able to be designated as a community redevelopment area. So my final presentation is we did make a recommendation within our study. Our recommendation that the city move forward with adopting a community redevelopment area for the downtown, North Fort Harris and Osceola, and North Greenwood core area. Those are areas A, B, and C that you see on the map on the screen, which are consistent with the map that's in your backup agenda materials that the city staff had provided. So with that finishes my presentation. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Cornelius? This really is the first step. We'll be talking about this further on Thursday night, but this is only the first step in establishing the CRA. I want to thank all the participants to this point, because there's still a lot of heavy lifting to do. But I support this as we travel this journey to make it happen. Any questions? Councilmember Beckman.
I just wanted to say I support it as well. It's exciting to see the energy and momentum that's in that community, and they've worked very hard and done their due diligence, and I think it'll be a real positive.
Other questions or comments? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said on this. This is something that I've seen so much energy in the community about this and positivity. It's a great thing, and I think we're going on the right path, so I support it wholeheartedly.
Anything else? Councilmember Bunker and then Hamilton.
I agree completely. Very impressed with the people in North Greenwood who've been putting this plan together, working with the city, and I'm happy to see this as it moves forward.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Well, as someone who's been here a long time, I complimented the people involved in this effort, because contrary to what we've witnessed and experienced in the past, and this isn't a criticism as much as an observation, this is a very unified approach coming forward from this neighborhood. And it's so easy to get behind it and support it for me. It's a neighborhood that is needed for a long, long time, a number of things, but the problem has always been you are getting mixed messages from different leaders in that community. They were all coming forward with ideas, but they all had different ideas, and they all thought they were speaking for the community as a whole. This is a much more unified approach, and This is a very easy thing for me to get behind.
All right, we will discuss this further on Thursday. Thank you, Mr. Cornelius.
Thank you.
Item 4. Well, let's take a 10-minute recess. We're at the 2-hour time frame, so this is a perfect stopping point. We'll take a 10-minute recess. we good, Rose? I don't know where Vice Mayor's not back yet.
I'm here.
There he is. Okay. We will reconvene the work session. On the last item, I had misspoke. Our council meeting is on Wednesday this week. Normally it's on Thursday. Want to make it clear that if someone wants to come to discuss the CRA or any issue for that matter, they should be here Wednesday night, not Thursday night. Old habits die young. 4.1.
Approve settlement of workers' compensation claim 190,00138 for payment of $325,000 inclusive of attorney fees and costs for Scott Fowler with a general release of all claims and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Osorio.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Good morning, Rick Osorio, Risk Manager. Mr. Fowler was an active duty police officer with the Clearwater Police Department as of December 2002. In November 2019, he sustained a cardiac event which resulted in his inability to fully return to work. The city has spent approximately $110,000 for his treatment and disability to date. Due to his inability to return to work, the city faced $150,000 to $200,000 in costs for future medical treatment. His future remaining lifetime disability payments could also reach $830,000 to $1.3 million. Based on his life expectancy, the city's total exposure was projected to be $980,000 to $1.5 million. Risk Management then moved to request a mediation, which was held September 23rd, 2020, and resulted in a settlement of $325,000 contingent on council approval. The Risk Management Division, the outside attorney for the city of Clearwater, Mark Hungate, with banker Lopez Gassler, PA, and the city's claims committee recommend approval of the settlement. Funding for the payment of the settlement is available in the budget for claims expense in the Central Insurance Fund. The Risk Management Division is respectfully requesting approval of this settlement.
Everyone has been apprised of this on a one-on-one. Are there any further questions at this time? Consent?
No.
5.1. Thank you, Mr. Soria.
Thank you.
Approve amendment number 2 for the Emergency Medical Services ALS First Responder Agreement between Pinellas County and City of Clearwater to add lifeguard BLS First Responder Services to the Clearwater Fire District and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Chief Ellers.
Morning, Mayor, Council, Scott Ellis, Fire Chief, Clearwater Fire and Rescue. This request is for approval of Amendment 2 to the Emergency Medical Services ALS First Responder Agreement with Pinellas County. This amendment will add the beach lifeguards BLS responder services to the existing agreement. The beach lifeguards were brought under the department as of October 1st to provide more efficiency on the EMS side of their responsibilities. As with a lot of lifeguard programs across the nation, emergency medical services has become more of their everyday routine in the publics they serve. Because most EMS services reside in the fire service as well as in Pinellas County through the first responder agreements, it was determined that the most efficient place was with Clearwater Fire and Rescue. This now brings the lifeguard EMTs under the provisions of the Pinellas County EMS system to include their training, recertification, and equipment. So as not to lose their high quality customer service that they do on a regular basis so great, a memo of understanding was put in place with Parks and Recreation and the fire department to ensure all other elements regarding citizen interaction is maintained at the highest level. As part of the transition over the last month, all lifeguard EMTs were sent through the Ems Academy, which not only sharpened their skills, but also provided the training needed for their recertification with the state. This training became so much, and the level of service provided became invaluable Friday afternoon when a citizen had a cardiac arrest near the Palm Pavilion, in which 3 lifeguards engaged immediately performing CPR until the arrival of paramedics from Station 46. At that time, the teams worked seamlessly together, which facilitated the man in getting a return of spontaneous circulation, which is what we utilize as that he had a return of his regular heartbeat, which leads hopefully to a positive outcome before being transported to the hospital. Lastly, the county, in discussion with the county, they really want to utilize this as a model for the other agencies across the county in regards to how they may be able to help, put EMTs as lifeguards. Lastly, I'm hopefully with the positive outcome of the individual, we hope that I can bring back somewhere in the near future the entire team to recognize them for their efforts with the City Team Award. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions for clarification.
Any questions for the chief? Consent? All right, 6.1. Thank you, Chief.
Award a contract to Paramount Painting and Services, Inc. of Tampa, Florida for invitation bid 20-0036 in the amount of $109,969.75, which includes a 10% contingency to perform structural concrete repairs and painting at Spectrum Field and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Lockwood.
Morning, Mayor, City Council, City Managers. Mike Lockwood, Assistant Director for the Parks and Recreation Department. In front of you today is a contract with Paramount Painting and Services, Inc. to perform structural repairs at Spectrum Field. Annually, Planning Associates conducts a structural inspection of this facility and then helps city staff review and prioritize these types of repairs. Repairs for this year's project include, but are not limited to, routing and sealing of concrete cracks, installing epoxy injections, and precast beams, repairing corbels and columns, and paint specific areas outlined in the RFP. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Beckman.
Yeah, I had on the document that's attached, it says Highland Avenue widening at the top. Is that part of, was wondering why that was there?
Which document is that?
It's let's see, it's the second one, section, let's see, I guess it's is it the first one? Spectrum Field. Where did I see that Highland widening at the top? Oh, I don't know. I must have made a mistake. I'm sorry. But under the first document, oh, it does. There it is. Under the first document, I just clicked it. I have it in all caps at the top. Highland Avenue widening. Before I get to Spectrum Field structural repairs. So I don't know what that is, but we have, so some of these calculations are highlighted in yellow. And then on the second page, it says calculation error. Have those been corrected or reconciled?
Yes. Sorry. Yes, the ones that are highlighted, we just wanted to kind of highlight them to make sure that people do that it wasn't correct, but then they were corrected. So everything on this document is now corrected. We kept it highlighted just so we knew that there were a few that were not at the time.
Okay. And then why is some of the text in red on the left? What's that indication? On the bid items? Is it just because it's, more of a description there, or?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's more of that description that highlights kind of where they're looking, because there are, if you look at the first one, there's it specifies where at Spectrum Field they will be working.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Lockwood, what are we doing to try to keep all of, well, specifically Spectrum, but I see it at a couple different places around the city, from us even getting to the point where there is spalling? I mean, it's always about keeping things sealed up so there's no saltwater intrusion. We're in a very corrosive environment. I don't know how we're getting to these points with some of the facilities.
Well, this specific facility, we do have the annual inspection that Peroni and Associates helps us with. I'm not sure exactly what other facilities you're referencing there.
None under your purview.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
But so in these annual inspections, they hadn't caught where there was intrusion of water prior to spalling actually occurring?
No, and this is done annually. And last year we got this report, and we actually didn't do any repairs last year. So these are all prioritized. So when and if they did find anything, it was not kind of earmarked to actually take care of it right away. So it's kind of a preventative maintenance. So for this, we're catching it before it actually becomes a problem.
Okay. Any other questions? Consent? Item 6.2.
Approve an interlocal agreement between the city of Clearwater and the town of Bel Air to provide slope mowing services for the town of Bel Air and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Lavery.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Michael Lavery, Parks and Recreation. This is an interlocal agreement between the city and the town of Bel Air for the city to provide slope mowing services. We occasionally assist neighboring municipalities with specialized equipment and other resources. In this case, we have a specialized slope mower and Bel Air does not. The town of Bel Air asked for assistance mowing the steep slope along Bayview Drive, which slopes down to the Intracoastal Waterway, and it's a town park. In our discussions, it became clear that Bel Air would like this service 2 to 3 times a year. And since it's a recurring request, we decided to formalize it with this agreement. If it was just a one-off thing, we may have just done that, but if it's going to be repeated, we want to have an agreement in place. So Parks and Recreation uses its slope mower most days, so this service would typically be provided on a weekend with staff on overtime. The work takes 8 hours with 1 operator and 1 supervisor. Bel Air will reimburse the city $1,584.21 for this service on a weekend, or $1,280.21 on a weekday. And happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Beckman.
How long has this been going on, or are they just asking for this service right now? Have we done it in the past?
I believe we may have done it once in the past, but then when they asked us to come mow this area, which gets very overgrown, and it is very difficult to mow and a little bit hazardous without this specialized equipment. When it became clear that this was something that they would like us to do perhaps 2 times a year, we decided that we should have a formal agreement.
Okay. And then if it's a difficult or specialized work, is that why we don't just loan them the equipment and their employee mows it? We need to have our trained employee do that?
Yeah, especially on this type of equipment, we would want to have our folks that are trained with it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm all for helping adjacent municipalities. I guess my only question is, this is covering all of our costs, including depreciation?
Yes,
some
sir.
portion of depreciation?
Yes, sir, that was calculated in as well.
And then that's an interesting location that we're talking about. There's a lot of fallen trees and other things. If anything is to damage our equipment, who would be responsible?
I mean, I think we would be responsible because we own it and we have staff that are specially trained to operate the equipment. There will be a supervisor on site with the employee. As we do with any hazardous work that we're doing, there's always a second person there, making sure that nothing goes wrong and keeping eyes out ahead of the operator.
Well, my concern is if you're only mowing twice a year, that's extraordinarily deep grass. There could be, boulders, large segments of trees. And if our equipment gets damaged, we're actually losing money by doing this. I want to know that we're not on the hook for that.
Sure, I understand. That is not, the city is on the hook for the equipment, but we also we're familiar with the location. It is only twice a year, but this is a very heavy duty mower. It cuts down trees. That's what it's designed to do. And the reason we wouldn't, advise Bel Air to go buy their own is because they cost $200,000 and they're only going to use it, twice a year. So I understand your concern, but it is a very heavy duty piece of equipment.
Are you concerned about liability, Pam? You're muted.
Thank you. A liability to
the city. I mean, if we're getting reimbursed our costs, but if we had something with a $200,000 piece of equipment go awry and then we're on the hook for it, then we're basically charging the citizens of Clearwater to do something for the city of Bel Air. I'm a little concerned with that.
Taking a quick look at the agreement, I did not originally approve this agreement, but taking a look at it, we are the responsible party for our own equipment. So we would not be reimbursed for damages to the equipment. So that would be a departmental and council decision as to whether or not you wanted to accept that.
Any other feelings of anyone else? Councilmember Beckman?
I think we could have a contingency in there if the equipment, somehow got damaged or something while it was on Bel Air's property while we were operating it. I don't know how to word those things for a legal document, but share some kind of shared contribution or expense, or yeah.
Well,
Councilmember Hamilton?
Well, we have, correct me if I'm wrong, we have done this for Bel Air before, like once or twice before, correct?
At least once.
Okay, so, we know what's there. And I don't know, I'm very familiar with where we're talking about doing this. I have no idea what this equipment looks like. I'd be interested to see it actually. The only slope mower I'm aware of is hold it back further. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, I have seen that kind of mower before. I just, this is a heavy piece of equipment. This is pretty strong. It's designed to take a beating because the terrain it's going to be used on, is can have some pretty rough stuff. But you always want to, I would leave it up to Pam if she feels the contract needs a little bit more of a CYA clause in it or not.
So, council, we are self-insured for the damage to equipment like this. So it would be no different than if it happened on city property. If you want some other type of assurances from Bel Air, we can attempt to get that. But our equipment, we are self-insured for damages to our equipment.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, we do have two people going in on this. I feel confident that they're professionals. They know how to use the equipment. They're not going to be running it down on a boulder or something. They've done it before. They're familiar. It really, I know that the slope on this is pretty steep going right down to the water. And I don't think they mow all the way down to the water. Probably just as far as the arm will extend.
Correct.
Is what they'll mow. So I have confidence that, we got professionals using the machine. They know how to do it. And I don't think we need any additional CYA stuff on there. I think we're confident with our staff can do the job and do it right.
Anyone else? We'll see. I hope it's not a mistake. Consent?
Yes.
All right, 7.1.
Reappoint Patrick E. Adamson to the Board of Trustees, Clearwater Police Supplemental Pension Plan with the term to expire October 31st, 2024. Sergeant Hasty.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm Sergeant Meg Hasty with Clearwater Police Department. I also serve as a trustee on the Supplemental Pension Board. In keeping with the provision of Florida Statute 185.05, which states in part, the Board of Trustees shall consist of 5 members, 2 of whom, unless otherwise prohibited by law, shall be legal residents of the municipality, who shall be appointed by the legislative body of the municipality. At a meeting of the Board of Trustees held on August 19th, 2020, Patrick Adamson agreed to serve another 4-year term as a trustee. Mr. Adamson is a legal resident of the city of Clearwater. The Board of Trustees of the Clearwater Police Supplementary Pension Fund recommends that Mr. Adamson be appointed as trustee. Mr. Adamson stated he will accept the reappointment. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Consent?
Yes.
All right. 7.2.
Approve acceptance of University of North Florida Training and Services Institute, Inc., DBA Institute of Police Technology and Management, High Visibility Education and Enforcement Campaign for Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Grant Award in the amount of $26,882 for police overtime, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute, signed Chief Slaughter.
So this is, as Manager said, good morning, this is Dan Slaughter, Clearwater Police Chief. Good morning, Council, Mayor. This is going to be another iteration of the High Visibility Education and Enforcement Campaign for pedestrian and bicycle safety. That is a statewide campaign. These funds are used to cover overtime costs for police officers doing education and enforcement on overtime at selected locations by the University of North Florida Institute of Police Technology and Management through an analysis of crash data. The target areas are going to be Gulf to Bay from Old Coachman to Comet Avenue, Gulf to Bay from US 19 to McMullen Booth, South Missouri Avenue from Woodlawn to Court Street from Madison to Lincoln, Countryside Boulevard from Village Drive to State Route 580, and Drew Street to Fort Harrison to North Lincoln. This will be the 8th phase since March 2014. The 7th phase was cut short because of COVID. The funds associated with this grant will need to be exhausted by May 14th of 2021. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the chief? Consent?
Yes.
All right. 7.3.
That the United States Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs, WAG local eligible allocation amounts $25,000 or more, 2020 grant award in the amount of $39,296 for Axon single vehicle equipment, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute, same. Chief Slaughter again.
Slaughter, the Police Department, PD is seeking the approval of the council to accept the DOJ Justice Assistant Grant in the amount of $39,296. The council previously directed the police department to implement a body-worn camera program and approved an agreement on August 6th with Axon to provide the body-worn cameras, the docking stations, software licensing, digital storage, and components for the auto activation of the camera when an officer removes their firearm or activates their taser device. With these funds, the police department will purchase 140 Axon signal vehicle modules. This device will allow for the body-worn cameras to auto-activate when the officer activates the emergency equipment on the police vehicle, the lights. The module uses a Bluetooth signal that will activate any body-worn camera within approximately 30 feet. These modules will be placed in select vehicles that are anticipated to be in service the longest, and the remaining vehicles, when they are replaced at the end of their life, we will have the modules installed in the new vehicles as part of their upfit process. Be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the chief? Consent?
Yes.
Thank you, chief. Appreciate it. Good to see you on Saturday. 8.1,
Approve the annexation's initial future land use map designation of residential ORL and initial zoning atlas designation of low medium density residential LMDR district for 1468 Carolyn Lane and 1824 West Drive, and pass the appropriate ordinances on first reading. Mr. Brotherton.
Thank you, Connor Brotherton, Planning and Development. So these voluntary annexation petitions involve 0.376 acres of property consisting of 2 parcels of land which are both occupied by single-family dwellings. The applicants are requesting annexation in order to receive sanitary sewer and solid waste service from the city. The owners of 1468 Carolyn Lane are aware that the sewer impact and assessment fees must be paid in full prior to connection and of the additional cost to extend to the city's sewer line. And the owner of 1824 West Drive has paid the sewer impact and assessment fees in full and has been connected to the city's sewer system. And then upon annexation, solid waste will be provided to the properties. We have to answer
any questions? 8.2.
Approve the annexation initial future land use map designation of residential urban RU and initial zoning atlas designation of low medium density residential district for 3142 San Bernardino Street, and pass the appropriate ordinances on first reading. Mr. Guevara.
Hello, Diego Guevara, Planning and Development. This voluntary annexation petition involves 1 parcel of land totaling 0.21 acre occupied by a single family dwelling. The applicant is requesting the annexation in order to receive sanitary sewer and solid waste service from the city. The property located within an enclave and is contiguous to existing city limits to the east, west, and south. The applicant has paid the city sewer impact and assessment fees and is aware of the additional cost to extend the city sewer service to the property. Collection of solid waste will be provided by the city of Clearwater once it is incorporated.
Any questions? All right. Bob Berry did text me just a moment ago, and I'll share what he said, that they did an inventory of that whole site in Bel Air to make sure there was no debris that could damage the machine. So thought I'd share that with all of you. 9.1.
Through fiscal year 2021 purchases of miscellaneous library materials from multiple sources in the amount not to exceed $694,000 pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, section 2.5641B, sole source, all dollar, and other government entities bids and quotes, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Ms. Obermeyer.
Hi, Jen Obermeyer, Library Director. Good morning, Mayor and Council. This is our fiscal year 2021 annual request for approval to purchase library materials in various types of formats. Formats include physical and electronic resources. I'll be happy to take any of your questions.
Any questions for Ms. Obermeyer? If anything changes with the agenda item on the library that we're going to be discussing in November, would it impact these purchases?
No, absolutely not.
So they're absolutely independent of whatever we decide.
Correct.
Okay. Consent? 10.1.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Amend the Clearwater Code of Ordinances, section 33.055, relating to the mooring, beaching, and placement of vessels, and pass the appropriate ordinance on first reading. Mr. Chesney.
Ted Chesney, Marine Aviation. Council, this amendment will help us better control the free day docks that the city offers. Currently, we provide public docks to the beach behind the rec center, south of the rec center. There's 15 public docks there. We provide public docking for Island Estates, north side of the causeway behind the CMA and the Island Way Grill for shopping and dining opportunities. And we also provide free side tie mooring at the downtown marina to bring people up to Cleveland Street. Right now, we experience some vessels that occupy the docks all day, sometimes all night, and we really don't provide the turnover that the docks were intended to provide for. So this ordinance change will allow us to better control that and to monitor the situation. We're installing cameras that we can actually verify when these time limits are exceeded. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
So we're going to be enforcing primarily through the cameras rather than having vessels on the water?
A little of both. The problem sometimes with enforcement is, you don't know when they arrived there. So we get complaints usually after the fact. A vessel's been there all night, a vessel's been there all day. So we can actually start seeing these vessels during the day while we're working. And, PD and our security aides at night can monitor them afterwards.
Okay. Other questions? Councilmember Beckman?
Yeah. Do they get like a ticket then? Is it like a parking ticket? They'll have a fine? And how much is that? How much would that be? Do you know?
I don't know the fine value right now. I can get that for you, but I don't know what that will be.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk about that further on Wednesday, except for Councilmember Hamilton wants to discuss it further today.
And how does this affect, say, special events such as Jazz Holiday? If we weren't in COVID, if we had Jazz Holiday going on this week, just as we would be, we have a number of people who, for that event, bring their boat in and park them pretty much the full time through that. Are we going to have allowances for that? Are we going to have rental rates for that? And even out on the beach when there's special events on the beach or something of that nature?
Well, for Jazz Holiday, we've often, we don't allow the public mooring there because we take that out of our inventory because they are used for the event and they do pay for that. We've never charged anything for the Sand Pearl Rec Center slips or behind Island Way. We could look at something like that, But we could always make that determination if we wanted to take something out of the, just like we can, take parking meters offline from time to time.
Now, and to give a more specific example, and I think the vice mayor is aware of this as well, the Island Way dockage, to my knowledge and from what has been reported to me, and I've witnessed it to a small extent, there's people that are living on some of these boats that are moored in the, just moored in the inlet there. And there's a small, almost like a rowboat that one of the occupants uses to row over to the dock, and he leaves it at the dock while he goes to work or does whatever throughout the day, and then he comes back, and that's kind of his daily docking space. How are we going to address something of that nature?
The same 3-hour time limit would apply, and that's really the problem. Is the moored vessels out there? They'll bring these kayaks or dinghies over to the larger slips and leave them in there all day. So a boater comes around, they don't really see that the slip's full because it's just low profile kayak in there, and then they go to dock and they can't because there's somebody in there. So we're going to control that. And some of those smaller vessels, we're going to let them moor on the backside of and this is in particular Island Way Grill. There's some areas there, but it's really for the turnover. For the intention of the docks was for people to visit Island Estates, to go to Publix, to go dining or wherever, not to leave your boat there all day and sometimes all night.
Right. Okay.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Chesney, I know there's a lot of things that happen that are unintended consequences. And, I've been following this whole mooring issue, and but the city of Clearwater does own that property between the Causeway and Island Estates on both sides of Island Way. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So why can't we just not allow mooring in the areas that we own the land under the water?
I'm not sure I can answer that. That's been a question that people have asked for a long time because we do own the bottomlands there, and the mooring has been ongoing for forever. So
well, we've been criticized. I get criticized all the time. They say, "Well, why don't you do something at the city to do? With all these mooring problems we have. Look what happened in Madeira Beach, or they took care of theirs. Well, they own the property under the water, and I try to let people know that, but most people don't. When the state owns the water, they have the authority over that, but we do own those two sections of water. And I was at Island Way this weekend, and I know there's 4 or 5 boats that are moored out there, people living there, and then coming in and using those docks. So it seemed like it might be that might be a Pam question, but might be a simple task to be able to do that.
Well, I can kind of answer that. With Madeira Beach in particular, they own the land, yes, but they also have a permitted marina there. So if we had something permitted there, whether it be a marina, a mooring field, then we could control that. But it's open water there, and people can come in and travel over the open water. They drop anchor. I don't know where the open water and anchoring meet, but I do know that if we had something permitted there, a marina or a mooring field, we could control that.
Okay, and I know your plans on that in the future, so we don't need to talk about that anymore, but kind of coincides with the the remodeling of the marina. I know you're working on that, so thanks.
All right, item 11.1.
Approve the purchase of HVAC replacement and repair parts for an annual not to exceed amount of $450,000 for fiscal year 2021 to vendors as listed in accordance with Florida Code of Ordinances section 2.5641D, other government entities bids, and 1C, small dollar purchases, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. YQ.
Good morning, Tom Wyke, Building Maintenance Superintendent. This request is to purchase various HVAC parts as required from the following vendors: Tampa Bay Train, Florida Cooling and Supply, Johnstone Supply, United Refrigeration, and R.E. Michael. Questions?
Any questions? Councilmember Beckman.
I just had one question. It reminded me of the discussion we had a month or so ago about the Clearwater Gas Company that asked, we approved a pretty expensive warranty on their HVAC. These don't include the Clearwater gas needs, is that correct?
But the stuff for Clearwater Gas, that was a maintenance / warranty agreement that they had done. This is strictly for just parts as needed as service calls and other things arise.
Okay, throughout the city,
Yes.
including the gas company.
Yes, outside of those units that were under warranty, which Brian Legel brought forward.
Okay, thank you.
Consent?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. 11.2.
The purchase order to Pinellas County Solid Waste for an operating expenditure of $4,300,000 for the disposal of solid waste at the Pinellas County Waste to Energy Plant landfill for the period October 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, as provided in the city's Code of Ordinances, section 2.5641D, services provided by other governmental entities, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute the same. Mr. Johnson.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Council. Pinellas County Solid Waste operates the only waste to energy plant and landfill in the county. All putrescible solid waste collected by the city is taken to this facility. The increase in budget from $4.2 million last year to $4.3 million before you today will accommodate the 6% increase in disposal fees imposed on all disposal by the county. It will also accommodate the increase in tonnages resulting from a consumer shift from store purchases to home delivery and consumption, representing an increase of approximately 2,300 additional tons of waste. Can address any questions you may have.
Any questions? Vice Mayor.
So I noticed that the pretty much now the recycling is being picked up as waste and probably is contributing to more tonnage at the Pinellas County Solid Waste. Is that accounting for that, or is that is that a reason why the tonnage is going up?
It does account for that. That isn't the only reason for the increase in tonnage. Most of the recycling we collect is clean enough to be processed. When it's too contaminated, it cannot be, and it has to be disposed of. So that is included in this budget.
Okay, so you are still picking up recycling in a separate truck than trash?
Correct.
I mean, not trash, but garbage.
Yes, yes. The recycling program is still standalone, and we process as much of it as we can, as much of it as our processor waste management can handle. When it is obviously contaminated beyond their ability to process it, then it becomes disposal.
Is the, I went out a year or so ago and before you had the new facility and watched you guys dump that stuff out. It was horrible. I mean, it was garbage in the recycling. And that's when before you went through the public awareness and trying to tell public, please, don't put trash in the recycling container. And then I know we had some recycling issues, especially with COVID, that we picked it up, kind of combined it, really didn't do recycling, but we're back full stream on that now. Is the new facility easier for you to check that out?
We are back to picking up recycling completely separate. The new facility that you refer to as the solid waste transfer station, so it has not had an impact on how we're handling recycling at this point. We will come to you soon to talk about upgrades to the recycling processing center that will allow us to more accurately handle the recycling material.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yeah, is this the first year or is this the second year under the new pricing at the county site? I know they raised their rates for the first time in a long time. Is this our first year under the new rates, or is this our second year?
This is the second year, and you're right. The county held their rates for close to 20 years, and a couple of years ago realized that they needed to increase gradually to maintain their facility. We experienced an increase last year, And the item before you today represents the second year increase in the county pass-through.
Other questions? Councilmember Beckman.
I just, first of all, I had the pleasure of getting a tour of all the facilities with Mr. Johnson and Mr. Gloucester last week. So that was really good. And I appreciate it. And I saw that solid waste transfer station. It was great. So, and I just lost my flipped on things, but when you said or when the document says that there's an increase due to consumer behavior, I would think it might be an increase with the amount of cardboard that's recycled. I mean, and does that cause, that tonnage? So we've got, so it's, approximately 2,300 additional tons of waste. And my note is is it because of packaging waste?
Yes, that's correct. You
Oh, it
are
is.
right on both points. There is an increase in cardboard because of deliveries, but
Right.
there also contained individual packaging for the items that people are bringing home themselves. So a lot of it may be carryouts from restaurants that they're taking home instead of eating in restaurants. So there's still more consumption taking place at home than there was before.
Okay, all that packaging, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Consent?
Yes.
Okay. Item
Thank
11.
you, Amazon, for all that packaging.
That's right. They're keeping international paper in business.
Yes.
11.3.
Approve a purchase order to Communications International of Vero Beach, Florida in the amount of $181,805.38 for the maintenance and repair of the citywide two-way radio communication system and equipment in accordance with section 2.5641B Clearwater Code of Ordinances, sole source, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute signing. Mr. Wilson.
This is Charles Wilson, your radio communication manager. This is a contract renewing authorization for Communication International to provide preventive maintenance, repair, and/or replacement for the city two-way radio system and terminals. This contract covers mobile and handheld radios used by Clearwater PD, solid waste, Clearwater gas, and other city departments. The term of this contract renewal is 1 year, October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, and includes demand services, emergency services, and preventative maintenance on 1,400 city radios. The cost for this contract with Community International service is $181,805.38. With this renewal, we will enter into year 19 of a 20-year contract with Community International, as they are the sole source dealer for Harris radios used by city. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Any questions? Councilmember Hamilton.
Well, seeing as this is the 19th year out of a 20-year agreement, I'm assuming this doesn't include any upgrades to the existing system. This is just maintenance and repair of existing equipment. It's no new equipment.
Yes, sir. This is maintenance of our current equipment.
That's a lot of money for repairs. So hopefully after the 20-year contract, we can, I'm assuming we're probably going to be looking at upgrading and getting new radios that won't need as much maintenance and repair.
What we're going to be looking for is we're going to go with RFP, new contract, new 20-year contract. And we're looking at the point of looking at some of our equipment, our radios for the police department are at end of life at their juncture. And then we're also going to be looking at city radios, which has a little bit more time. Our mobile units for our police department also has a little bit more time. Our main equipment and our towers are in good shape, so we'll reevaluate those as well.
Well, given the rapidly changing technology world, is a 20-year contract a smart way to go? Should we have a shorter term contract because the equipment and the technology changes so quickly? are we using dinosaur type equipment after, 7 or 8 years into a 20-year contract and we're locked in and can't make any changes?
No, sir. We change as the technology changes with the P25 system. We have to change with technology, not only hardware, but software. As the software and hardware changes, we upgrade with that change throughout the years. So you've had upgrade changes in hardware since the 20-year contract started.
Well, that was the point I wanted you to make so that everybody understood that we're not locked into an old system. As the technology improves, we improve with the technology.
Yes, sir. We have to. There's no other way.
Thank you.
But this is still on the Maycom system that's on a different frequency than our neighbors?
No, sir. That's incorrect. Maycom is no longer. We are with the Harris brand, and that is
made by Maycom now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Harris bought L3. Harris bought Maycom, and we went with the products from Harris, which is what we currently use right now.
So even when this contract is up, and that's not really what we're talking about today, we're just talking about repair parts, but
correct.
Aren't we somewhat pigeonholed to be with them because of the system?
In a way, yes, because the way our infrastructure is built with the towers, the frequencies, all of those things that go into that, it's a lot of infrastructure.
Okay. Any other questions? Good to see you, Mr. Wilson.
Good to be seen.
All right, consent 12.1.
Confirm COVID-19 emergency proclamation and adopt resolution 20-54.
Any question on the ongoing resolution? 12.2. Any questions on the second readings? Seeing none. Mr. Horn, any verbal reports?
None, man.
Ms. Aiken?
No, sir.
We will go through the discussion of the city attorneys and city manager's evaluation. That's something we'll do on Wednesday night. Is there anything anyone wants to add at this time about that? Councilmember Beckman?
So what are we doing on Wednesday night? Are we giving our verbal evaluation before?
Normally, I recommend, first of all, talking to both of the employees privately about your evaluation. And then the other council members can see your evaluation sheets. They're obviously made a part of the public record. And then we have an open discussion, not only about the evaluation, but also about compensation. So it's very transparent. Ms. Aiken?
Mayor, for the past few years, we have separated compensation from the evaluation, and the compensation is now scheduled to be at the meeting in November. So in recent years, we have separated them.
Okay. Vice Mayor, you had something to add. Did that answer your question, Councilmember Beckman, or not?
No, not. So we've all been given. I ask this because this topic has been it was a big topic of really deep discussion with the Charter Review Commission last year, and they had recommended before the council that there were unified measurable annual goals and consistent. I can't remember if they recommended written evaluations. I think so, but annual measurable goals with written evaluations that were uniform. And we've all been sent a sample form for evaluation for the city manager and city attorney, but it's not required. And so I'm wondering, what the format of Wednesday will be. Will we all be sharing our forms? Are our forms just shared with our city manager and our city attorney. I hand them a form or give to them digitally. But I mean, I don't feel comfortable or that it's necessary to go through every form question from the dais. If residents want to see that form and any narrative comments, they can ask to see it. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Or is it just going to be a relaxed, discussion without looking through the identifiers on those evaluation forms?
It's usually a pretty relaxed, free-formed conversation between the different council members. There are occasions where a specific item may be brought up that you would like to see certain emphasis on going forward, and also areas where you're really happy with their performance. I personally like seeing other council members' evaluation sheets. I always filled one out on an annual basis, not only so it was a part of the public record so people could see it, but also because I think it's a good conversation piece individually between, the city manager and a council member and the city attorney to actually talk about things. Mr. Horn and I have already talked about his, and I've always said, I don't give fives across the board to anybody. I think there's always areas that we can improve. I expect improvement by myself in my own job, but he obviously got a very solid score, but I also talked about the priorities that I had for the upcoming year. And this is the only time that all of us get to talk about those priorities. I did hear the Charter Review Committee talk about some of the things they wanted. We've always had this sheet. We have never put a gun to anyone's head to complete it, but the majority of the time when I've been on the council, all the council members have filled out the form that is in fact uniform. So it's the same sheet, but nobody was forced to do it. Vice Mayor, you wanted to make a comment, and then Councilmember Hamilton.
Yeah, what I do and what I've done for the past 2 years is, I fill out the evaluation form, but I also put a accompaniment letter with it with a concise, what I think are the good and the, what could be worked on, and what I saw that was good last year, where we're going in the future. Not a big, long, but, at least a page, kind of a concise thing. And that's what I really, and I'll read that Wednesday night. I think it's helpful for everybody to hear it. And I think our constituents, they want to see that we care about that. And, I'm sure the city manager and the city attorney would like to hear our input. They do every week when we meet with them, but I think it's good for everybody to hear. It makes a good conversation. So,
Councilmember Hamilton.
Well, as you know, and I'm a little different. I've done this 12 times. This will be my 13th, I believe, and I have yet to submit a written evaluation. It's just not something I know what the form says, and I look at the form as I create my evaluation. But we do have our weekly meetings. I'm talking to the city manager and the city attorney every week about city issues, private issues, personal issues, all kinds of things. And I'm old school. I was raised to praise publicly, criticize privately. And I think the city manager and the city attorney will both tell you that if I felt the need to criticize them, I have done that. But I approach it a little differently. Unless the council says you have to fill out the form, I will not be submitting one. If you want me to submit one, I'll submit one, and I can promise you that the form itself will be minimally filled out because I just don't think it's necessary as a requirement. You can disagree with me if you want, but that's always been my approach. My evaluation will address that in that manner on Wednesday night. So,
any other comments? Councilmember Beckman?
Well, I'm not gonna, drag this on indefinitely, but I think setting, in order to evaluate an employee or a person, I mean, I'm thinking about when I was employed as a high school teacher, we set annual measurable goals, and we had mid-year review, and then we had a final evaluation. And in order to evaluate, it'd be good to have, what are the goals this year, rather than, just the general description of, what the city manager's position is. Because, I went online and read the description for the city manager as well as the city attorney. And, there's nothing quite measurable in either of those. And different cities have annual measurable goals for their top leadership. And the Florida League of Cities considers it to be a best practice. And so I certainly don't think it's appropriate to, initiate anything like that for this year, because, first of all, I've only been on the council 6 months, and if this is an annual review, there weren't goals set earlier. But as we move forward with these two top positions likely to be retiring in the next year or so, I think it would be a really good discussion to have as we hire new city managers and city attorneys, as if we are going to have annual goals that are agreed upon, that are very transparent with the public, and that we go forward with when we evaluate. And I would tell you too that if goals change and things change, and but things change, goals change in any organization, whether you're teaching or you're in the corporate world or whatever. And really, as Mr. Horn has said again and again, we work at the direction of the council. What does the council direct us to do? And then staff is directed and gives us recommendations. If we are changing those goals too frequently or kind of willy-nilly or whatever, that's a reflection on us as well. And so I would say if the city managers, if we set goals at the beginning of the year and we change the goals, that city manager needs to reflect that in his or her documentation, as in, okay, 3 months in, the council has changed the goal, and so now I'm heading in this direction. And when we do an evaluation, it reflects on us, I think, as much as it does, our leadership and what guidance we're giving them. So it's just, I think it falls under a philosophical topic, but I would hope we would give it some real solid attention as we go to hire these two crucial positions in our city government.
Okay, any other comments? Council Member Bunker and then Hamilton.
Just a little preview for me. They definitely are the best city attorney and city manager I've ever worked with, and the only. So so I'll flesh this out more on Wednesday, but I've enjoyed working with both.
Well, what I was going to say, Mayor, was, again, my approach, I come from a business environment. Now, goals are easy to set and easy to measure and analyze from a business perspective. In business, you want to increase your revenues, you want to keep your costs down, you want to do this, and it's all measurable, and you can reach that. What the city manager and what the city attorney are charged with doing changes constantly. You don't have, the city manager's goal and the city's goal is not to maximize revenues, because that'd be easy to do, because we don't have to worry about, sales. All we would have to do is raise taxes to raise revenue. So it's a different boat we're steering here. And we can change, we routinely ask the city manager and city attorney to change course every once in a while. And, you know, we're not driving a race boat. We're driving that you can change quick and move quickly. We're trying to change, you know, redirect a cruise ship, and it's a whole different dynamic. So, you know, I'd be interested to see what measurable goals, other than, you know, I mean, there's a lot of common sense stuff, but, you know, what measurable goals is it you want to see out of future city manager and city attorney? Because, like I said, we're not in a business environment here. We're in a political and governmental, and it's a different animal that we're dealing with here. So we'll see.
Well, maybe we could talk about this going forward in the context of the evaluation. Okay, let's get through the process one time, and then we can change it if we want to or add to it. I mean, I'm constantly measuring what's going on with the city manager and city attorney. The city manager more than the city attorney, because Ms. Aiken's mainly legal and guiding us, keeping us out of minefields. But fortunately, the city manager and the city attorney work well together. That is not always the case, by the way, in cities. They are very cooperative. They don't have silos. But now we're kind of getting into evaluations. So let's hold that for more people to be able to observe it on Wednesday night. Okay. All right. Any new business? I have asked the city manager to have a parking presentation because that's something I have some comments to make, and also want people to understand where our rates are derived from and what they pay for, which is a very long conversation. There's also some concerns I've had, and I'd like to raise those at that meeting. So the city manager has agended that. And the other thing is, you may not have seen the email yet from Sherry Heileman, but she sent an email over the weekend that I responded to about Ocean Allies and some language that could be used to inform guests and citizens, for that matter, about how we want to take care of our beach. And I like most of the language. I'd like to soften kind of the beginning of it a little bit, so it's a little more welcoming. But I do think it's something I'd like to talk about after you have all seen it. And I think it can be useful for some signage to really tell people what our expectations of them are as guests on the beach. So those are two things in upcoming discussions. Anything else? No? All right, so we are meeting, everybody, on Wednesday instead of our normal Thursday, and I just want everyone to be aware of that. And then I would not ordinarily do this, but I think it's worthy of pointing out. We have a media release that went out earlier today, and there is the attempt by our police department right now, and for those watching, to find a 14-year-old, Jacob Lee Tussing. He's a white male, 14 years old, 5'8", 125 pounds, hazel eyes, brown hair, last seen wearing a light peach or orange colored t-shirt.
They found him.
They did find him? I didn't
Yes,
see that.
he has been found.
Never mind.
He was safe, and he is safe. So
good.
Well, that's good. That's all that matters. All right, with that, we will adjourn. We'll see you all on Wednesday night.